Hello everyone and welcome back to the Damage Report on a Tuesday, the day where you never know who you're gonna get unless you follow us on Twitter because we announce it on there. You know who we've got straight from the internet? Dan Evans is back. How's it going, Dan?
Great to be with you, John. I can tell you I'm not armed this time, so there's that.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Okay, well he's the main reason we still do these remotely because I'm worried what'll happen if we're in the same room.
Wild Card Tuesdays.
Wild card, baby. So we had to have Dan here because I saw Elon Musk tweet something douchey and stupid, and I was like, well, gotta get Dan on to talk about this because I know that you're a connoisseur of Elon Musk. So I'm gonna make you defend your favorite person in the universe.
He also was talking trash about gaming chairs, and I just recently purchased one, so we're gonna have to go hand to hand on that potentially, politically speaking.
Oh, Dan, not only can I see the gaming chair that you're in. I don't know if you've looked. I have that tweet. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I have it. Anyway, we're also gonna get. We need a London perspective on some of the recent sports news. So we're gonna get that from Dan as well. So that's gonna be fun. But as we go through this 90 minutes of news, we're gonna be covering so much. We've got some Democrats actually kind of fighting by fleeing, but that's all that we can get. So that's good. So we've got that. Will it inspire other Democrats? We'll find out together. We've got cops behaving badly. We've got Karens behaving badly, which is sort of their job, so we can't be that surprised. We've got almost too many revelations about Rudy Giuliani coming out these days. The Trump ones were fine. I talked about them in the pre-show, but some of the stuff that's coming out about Rudy Giuliani is just disgusting. So we're gonna be breaking that down, talking about racism in the European Championship. And then more besides, including hopefully if we can get to an update on the worldwide vaccination effort, because that's obviously very important. We're hoping we can cover that as well. But in advance of that, thank you everybody for being here, regardless of where you're watching. We appreciate you supporting the show. One way you can continue to do that is by hitting the like button or sharing the stream. That would be great. And as we go through this, feel free to send us messages and we will respond to your questions, comments, and concerns. And with that, Dan, are you ready to jump on that news treadmill?
Put that news treadmill on 10 miles an hour. Let's just go all gas.
10 miles an hour, a slight incline. Let's not go crazy. And we'll launch into this first story. Actually, let's get started with this video.
I am tired of sitting as a hostage in a Texas House of Representatives while Republicans strip away the rights of my constituents to vote.
That is Texas State Senator Senfronia Thompson, who not long after that got involved in a Democratic effort to try to block the anti-voting rights legislation that Texas Republicans have been desperately trying to pass by literally fleeing this state. So enough Democrats got on a plane. They boarded two private jets from Austin to DC just yesterday. They said they would not return until the 30-day special session had ended next month. And that is basically because of the constitution that Texas has. They need a certain quorum. So if they can get out of the state, which they successfully did, then they can at least temporarily stop the legislation from being passed. What does the legislation do? Well, among other things, it would outlaw 24-hour polling places, ban ballot drop boxes used to deposit mail ballots, and empower partisan poll watchers. All of these efforts, just a weird coincidence, make it harder for people to vote. It's weird. It's just that's the way sometimes policy ends. What are you gonna do? Dan, what do you think about this effort?
I am, as someone who has been calling for the Democrats to show backbone for a long period of time now, I'm really pleased to see this effort by the Democratic Party. As you'll get into later, there could be potentially some major repercussions for this. The governor of Texas is big mad about this entire effort right now, but this is a big thing. Like if the Democrats are gonna stand up for anything, it's going to have to be voting rights because the Republicans have done an institutional assault on our democracy, our country for years. And what I mean by that is they've gone to appoint presidents. Not appoint presidents, but they used the presidents that they've gotten elected to appoint judges, for example, in the courts, in the federal courts, doing weird things constitutionally with the Supreme Court especially, and claiming weird precedents with when you can have judges on the court and when you can't, to stack the courts in favor of Republicans. You've gotten state legislatures across the country that are gerrymandered. I have gerrymandered districts where Republicans are protected. There's a new census that was supposed to help with that, but the Republican president helped make sure there was an undercount. So now the Republicans have some weird advantages here and there. Like they have institutional power, and the Democrats have been kind of keeling over the past decade or so, letting it happen. And this is now the last stand. This is gonna have to match up with efforts that are going on in Washington, DC with different voting rights bills that are floating around with varying levels of potentially passing. But this is an important step, and I'm glad the Democrats are taking it and playing hardball right now. It's gonna be a really tough fight, as we're gonna talk to about in a moment, but like this is what the Democrats need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, the only potential point of disagreement is it should match up with efforts that I really hope are ongoing in DC. I can't say that I've heard much about what's happening. A little bit came out about the reconciliation infrastructure bill today, which was not reassuring to me based on the content of what I saw there. But we'll see. Is for the People Act actually still being worked on? They imply that it's out there. We'll see though. But you are totally right about the fact that like if there's gonna be a fight, it has to be on this, because if you lose this fight, then you don't get to really have any of the other fights. They don't mean anything. And even this one, like to give you an idea of how manipulated everything has been, and Dan alluded to some of the baked in nonsense that we have. So the thing about the anti-democratic nonsense in our system is that it all supports the others. So you have a federal system where you have small states getting disproportionately more power in a variety of different forms, including, by the way, in the Electoral College. So you can have a president who can't win the popular vote, but gets elected via the Electoral College. He then gets to appoint judges who are gonna sit on the Supreme Court, so that in Texas, let's say that this eventually get passed, which it probably will. We'll spend the next couple of years with our fingers crossed, like, oh, what are the judges gonna say? And maybe a district court judge will strike it down. And we'll be like, yes, victory for democracy. And then the Court of Appeals will uphold the district court judge. And we're like, yes, this thing is going down. They're gonna stop the Republicans. And then the supermajority of the Supreme Court will say, yeah, the Republicans in Texas can do literally whatever they want. So like from the top to the bottom, it's all combining to make it so difficult to translate anything even approximating the popular will into actual policy. So somewhere the Democrats have to get involved. They have to try to do something. And right now, what they can do is run, even though, as Dan points out, that might have some consequences, including Governor Greg Abbott telling an Austin television station that he would keep calling special sessions of the legislature through next year if necessary, and raise the possibility of just arresting all the Democrats once they return home, saying as soon as they come back, they will be arrested. They will be cabined inside the Texas Capitol until they get their job done. So Dan, like that's obviously a threat. Do you think that's what it will come to, a mass arrest of Democratic state lawmakers?
I mean, if the lawmakers go back into Texas, they're definitely facing that risk. Listen, the Republicans are on a very cornered, concerned plan that they've been on for 10, 20 years or so, actually more than that, to have total power over the government on all levels as much as they can, to deregulate it, drain it in a bathtub, everything they want to do, and they've been talking about doing for years. They're not going to let, maybe the optics of arresting politicians look bad because Trump taught them optics don't really matter as long as you're acting in a partisan will and favor. So yeah, I'm not the person playing the chess here. So like maybe this is a thing where just the Texas lawmakers that are Democrats just don't live in Texas and they legislate remotely. A lot of us have been doing that for the past year anyways. So maybe it'll be an adjustment that'll be better for the Texas legislators' quality of life anyways, especially since political violence is on uptick again. But you want to, yes, of course, the Republicans are gonna play hardball because they've been playing hardball up to this point, and the Democrats are just learning hardball, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned about what their next move is, because traditionally they haven't been really smart and adept at playing the Republicans. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten to this point in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And look, people are asking in the chat, they're like, wait, how is that legal? Apparently it is. Under Texas House rules, absent politicians can be arrested and returned to the House floor. It is Texas after all, people. You can pretty much do whatever you want. And the thing is, like, I don't want this to be the way that state parties have to act. I wouldn't want the Republicans doing this to stop actual popular legislation, but this isn't popular. This doesn't reflect the will nationally of the voters in Texas, and it's not based on anything. They're saying all of this is to stop voter fraud, but it's a complete farce. So what are they supposed to do? Just allow democracy, the final vestiges of democracy, the already our democracy is more manipulated and contorted than your average congressional district. But that's what we have right now. So what are you supposed to do? And so thankfully they're at least doing this. Although we should note that while I think they deserve some credit, obviously, like they're risking potential arrest, and it's in Texas, so they'll probably be executed eventually. This is the area where Democrats will sometimes fight in trying to stop something. But I will point out to national Democrats, this is really a fight that you need to get involved in, because if they pass the For the People Act, then the Texas Democrats wouldn't have to be doing most of this, that this wouldn't be necessary. But it's always easier to get Democrats to show a little bit of backbone to stop something from being done than to get something new done, even if it's wildly popular, as the For the People Act with Republicans. It's difficult to get them to do that then, which is why we've just been dragging out month after month after month with the For the People Act without much progress. Any final thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, I was just gonna add context to that point you had about kind of Democrats' inability to play the politics of this right. Let's remember that these acts that are happening across the country to restrict voting rights are Republicans feeling like they're on the ropes, right? Because if the Democrats do well in Congress, which Republicans have already said we're gonna be obstructionists again, like in the Obama administration, then there's a significant chance that maybe Democrats can hold power for a little while longer and maybe build some momentum off of that in the coming midterm elections, general elections, all that stuff. But because Texas is on the precipice of becoming a purple state, being a purple state, maybe even being a blue state soon, along with other really big strongholds in the United States right now, could potentially in future elections, because of population changes, because of people thinking the Republican Party is just absolutely nuts. Things are not looking good electorally for the Republican Party, and so they're on the ropes and hit dogs holler, and they're fighting with everything they can right now. Democrats are acting like they're the ones on the ropes, and they're playing like that way, because in a way they are, but it goes back to your overall point, John, of they are not the best at strategy and utilizing the upper hand when they have it.
Yeah. And look at the difference in the willingness to play hardball. Like the Republicans will always act as if the Democrats are like a perfect melding of Mao and Stalin or something. Like Madison Cawthorn and CPAC is like, this is a tyranny of power-hungry madmen. Like, dude, they're not doing anything. Like they literally aren't doing anything. Whereas the Republicans are going to so much effort to try to make it impossible for Democrats to vote so they can stay in power, rather than literally propose anything popular. Like the thing is, the Republicans don't have to be much better than they are. There are a lot of crazy racist conservatives that are always gonna support them. All the Republicans really need is to win over a couple percentage points more of Americans by having some sort of actual platform. I'm not saying it has to be awesome. I'm not expecting them to pass universal health care or something, but literally any like shallow surface level effort would probably be enough for them to win in some of these states. And they don't want to do that. They would rather shred the last bits of democracy than try to put any substance to the fake claims of right-wing populism and all that. So that's the system. We got Democrats who can win, but don't really do anything with it, and Republicans who could if they wanted to, if they really cared to, but in the absence of that are going to try to effectively restrict the vote enough that they will remain in power. Anywho, we are going to take our first break. When we come back, you're all gonna need to hold on to your butts, because we've got a freak out and a Victoria's Secret that makes me uncomfortable in multiple different ways, and we're gonna break that down after this. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see what's going on out there in the audience. The artsy fartsy dragon says, Dragon Squad, greater than any other squad. Well, I like the Squad. I think they're pretty good. The Avengers are kind of a squad. I might give them the win, but thank you for being a part of the Dragon Squad. It is one of the best squads. Anyway, I just realized we didn't go to the poll. Should I do that when we come back? I'll do that once we come back. Okay. So out there in the audience, Lorna Paris became a tier 1 YouTube member. Thank you very much for that, Lorna. At that level, you not only get the egg badge that you now have, but you also get access to our emojis. Leslie K says maybe they should have arrested Fled Cruz when his constituents were freezing to death. I think it's just for the House politicians. But he was an absent politician, that's definitely true. And I also wish that they would give a little bit more thought to the concept of being absent. Why is being absent only a geographic thing? Not like I refuse to actually acknowledge the issues facing my constituents thing. Isn't that potentially more corrosive? Anyway, Billy Shively, hey Billy, says, is that Dan? I know him from the internet. I knew you from somewhere, Dan. It was somewhere.
Yes, I'm in different parts of the internet now. I did a TikTok recently that kind of blew up. That was fun. So check that out. Yeah, it was on good.
What was in the TikTok?
It was Good Morning Bad News from friend of the show, Jules, who does that. And it was on police militarization, a topic I love and live. So definitely check that out. I posted on my Instagram as well, Instagram.com/Dan from the internet. Plugs. Okay, continue, John.
I like to see you talking about police militarization rather than militarizing yourself in the final seconds of our show. Anyway, Jason R says, the Dems in Texas learned this from the Republicans in Oregon. The GQP does it to stop regulations to curb climate change. The Dems do it for voting rights. Both parties are not the same. Yeah, and it's happened before. I believe it's even happened in Texas like a decade ago. There was a big thing where some had fled. It happens in a few states. Peter Hamby says, when discretion becomes the only option, but it feels like these Republicans say we don't need them to strip black people's rights because racism. I feel like I'm missing something a little bit there, but Peter, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Kedge Dragon says vacating quorum is filibuster in absentia. Yeah, it sort of becomes like a filibuster of the process when I don't believe the vast majority of state houses have anything actually like a filibuster, but it's effectively the same thing. And the thing is, it's a filibuster the way we ask for filibusters to be. So the Democrats have fled. That's gonna generate actual news. If the reason they're doing it is bad and isn't supported by the public, then it will hurt those Democrats. They are risking really hurting their appearance, their reputation for this. That's how a filibuster should be. It shouldn't just be, oh no, you require 60 votes and we're not actually gonna do anything about it. It's just an instant thing. You didn't get 60, so we move on. No, you should have to stand there and actually filibuster. You should risk something. The Democrats are willing to risk something in Texas, but national Republicans are not when they filibuster everything that actually happens. And again, that's really on the Democrats. They could change the rules to require a talking filibuster. We can't even get Joe Manchin to sign on to that. Joe Manchin is giving national Republicans cover to filibuster everything without having to put anything on the line. Anyway, in Twitch, Obi-Wan Kenobi gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much for that, Obi-Wan. Mother effing Woman Dragon did as well, nice. Diamond Joker gifted 5. Thank you, Diamond Joker. Blue Tech, the Belgian Dragon gifted 1 as well, and then 2, and then 5. Blue Tech, what is up, man? Or her, I apologize, but thank you in advance. Anyway, more news after this. I got to it. Okay, everybody, before we went to that last break, I forgot to do something, which is let you know that we have another one of our classic Tuesday polls. So if you head over to tyt.com/polls, we want to ask you about the Dems Texas exodus. So at least 50 Texas House Democrats fled the state on Monday in an effort to deny the Republicans who control the state legislature the quorum necessary to pass a new law restricting voting rights. How do you rate their chances of killing this bill? So you can go to tyt.com/poll and answer the question, will Texas Dems succeed in their efforts to block the Republican voter suppression bill? Yes or no? We could have had a third option, which is, will it become moot because national Democrats will pass the For the People Act? But we know that would have gotten no votes, so what's the point in wasting your time? But anyway, go to that and we will give you the results later, tomorrow. We'll find out and we'll give them to you. Anyway, with that, you ready to do this, Dan? This is gonna be
ready as I'll ever be. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this video.
Oh God, no, it's you, now you are. Oh my God! Oh my God! Do you see this? Oh my God! I never thought nothing like this would happen to me. She just tried to run and hit me.
Okay, so what you're seeing there is a video in a Victoria's Secret in the Short Hills Mall in New Jersey. And what was thankfully caught on tape was that white woman rushing up to and attempting to strike a black woman, then immediately fleeing and breaking down in tears and denying that what had just been filmed had actually happened. There's a lot of video here. We're not gonna show it all to you, it is available online, but we wanna give you enough that you'll understand the context. So here's a bit more of the initial incident between the two women.
Run and hit me, and now she. Did you see her? You saw her, right? They all saw her. Oh my God! Karen had a breakdown. She tried to hit me. Ask your workers. She tried to hit me. I didn't try to hit you. Please don't record me. Don't record me.
Okay, so look, as hard as that might be to watch, as bad as that is, the section we're gonna play for you in a little bit is much worse. But Dan, I don't know if you were already familiar with this before this morning. What do you think about this incident?
Yeah, I'd seen this video a little bit beforehand, and like there's a cycle of these things. Like the Karen does the thing, someone records it, and then they get kind of blown up on the internet. People to varying degrees figure out like how to investigate that thing, investigate their personal life, and that's like it's not the best part about this, but also as someone who has been at the like receiving end of this sort of like entitlement culture that comes from white folks in America, unfortunately, some white folks in America, it's great, and I'm glad that people are able to say, and have video, like have phones and video on them at all times, because if it's the crying white woman's word against like the calm black person of a black woman, usually that's going to win. But you have that first couple seconds where she's rushing against her, and then you have the next couple seconds where she throws her clothes to the cashier worker for whatever reason, and then breaks down and starts doing her like panic attack performance thing and makes a big deal. Everyone else would have like reacted to that like performance and gone whatever with her side, because there's obviously distress there. But the video has all the evidence we need there, and like in history, there would have been a lot of lives saved potentially in the black community if there were this technology available 50, 100 years ago. But at least we have it today, so this sort of like Karen crap doesn't really fly.
Exactly, yeah. Assuming that when you put out the tape, people actually care. I mean, look at like all the body cam footage on cops. Like you can have clear evidence they just needlessly killed someone, and quite a few juries are like, no, I still like that, and I want that to continue, unfortunately. I have something I want to add to this, but first, to really demonstrate the point that I'm about to make, let's get into a little bit more of the video when the incident escalates.
You keep lying saying I'm threatening you, so I'm recording to protect myself.
Can you please stop recording?
You look at this. Get away from me! Oh, y'all better get this lady! Get away from me! You gonna get security! Look at this! Yes, can y'all get her away from me? Get her away from me! Oh, have mercy! Get her away from me!
Okay, so eventually security was called, and there's even more nonsense with that woman that happens with the security, and you can find out those details. So Dan, the thing about this for me is I get no pleasure from watching that. I guess I'm too much of a soft-hearted lefty or whatever, but like even a person who is clearly motivated by bad things and is trying to use the performative stress that they're experiencing, whatever, to predisposed the workers there and security to take her side rather than black woman she was assaulting. I can't take people who are in some form of distress. And the added level to it is, it was so over the top that I can't help but believe that part of this has got to be some sort of mental difficulty, some sort of mental issues, a breakdown. That doesn't make the woman right. It doesn't mean that she wasn't initially trying to attack a black woman and believing that she would get away with it. That seems clear. But on top of that, and it's one of the reasons some of these stories I sort of shy away from, because like I wonder to what extent some of them involve people having mental health difficulties. This woman she was laying down on the ground, like shaking, like writhing. That's beyond what we generally see in these things. What do you think? Am I off base?
Yeah, I mean, like it's not for like people who still have a shred of humanity left, and like it's not a great video to watch, but like I at least like to use these moments to separate the broad community of folks, myself included, who deal with mental illnesses of some kind, and crazy ass public freakouts and behavior, and like the fact that you can have you can go with like mental health and like have these different struggles and be a responsible person in that and learn how to like best cope with that, to be kind to yourself, to be kind to other people, to just like maintain that and not have those freakouts. Or like, again, you kind of see, there should be context before the video, of course, and maybe there's context afterwards, but mostly you see this woman coming to make threats against the person taking the footage, right? And so usually if you're having like a panic attack or you're like a mental health episode, you're not going to be running towards your trigger necessarily, you'll be running away from that.
That's true.
It seems like it could be a mental health episode type thing where she's made to be like angry and provoked or things like that. But let's not like, I don't think, of course, like you're not doing this, but for the audience out there, it's not to say, oh, you got to watch out for anyone who has like any sort of mental health issue, because they could freak out like a Karen. That's stigmatizing. We don't want to do that.
Sure, yeah.
But we do want to say that like, yeah, what we're seeing here, this woman's clearly like not in her like right mind, her well position. And so like some of these internet brigading and going after her personally, I don't really love all that stuff. I'd rather she like, face consequences for what she did, but also have the ability to learn from this moment as a person, so she doesn't do this to other people again.
Yeah, you're totally right. And yeah, I'm like, some people seem to think I'm defending her. I'm not. She's bad. I hate when people do stuff like this. I can't imagine, like the woman who filmed that, how many times has this happened to her and she hasn't been able to film it or hasn't thought to film it at the time? Like this is terrible that our country is filled up with incidents like this. I just don't. It's tough for me to watch. And it doesn't in any way like take away the culpability. And also, by the way, can be very helpful for security guards, cops, people who work at places like this. It's important for them to see these too, because that's the target for these sorts of manipulations, trying to turn those people in varying levels of authority against women like the one who's filming this. They need to know that this is going on. And I think to some extent, all of the anti-mask stuff might have put those people on a more defensive stance against people trying to manipulate them and get their way. But yeah, I just hate that there's so much of this. Like we've shown, Dan, we've had the woman in New York. I don't know if you've seen this, the woman who tried to get the person's dog hit by a car, and she's been popping up in other viral videos. Like there's so many people that this is their thing, is just going out there and starting stuff with people, and not just any people. Generally, it's attacking black people, or more recently attacking Asian American people. And I just hate that we have a country that's filled up with this stuff.
Yeah, it's an entitlement culture. That's all I got to say about that. It's entitlement.
Exactly. So anyway, we'll see what ends up coming out of this. Both of the women have been identified. I didn't feel like it was newsworthy to include that, but we will see what ends up happening. I am assuming that the footage will create a different outcome than you would have had if that woman hadn't thought to film this. Anyway, let's turn now to what happens when the cops do show up and don't make the situation any better. This again, I just want to throw out before we go to this video, you're about to see a cop committing an act of violence against a woman. So just bear that in mind. If you don't want to see that, I totally understand it. You can fast forward in the video, but let's go to this. So what you had there was Officer Rory Spain punching Tyrania Edmonds in the neck. And as soon as he punched her in the neck, he was very worried that he was being filmed. Not worried that he had just knocked a woman to the ground by punching her throat, but he was worried that it was being filmed. And I really don't know why cops would be worried about being filmed, since they almost always get off. But he has at least entered into the first stage of, it's like the consequences equivalent of a football being put out to be snatched away as we go to kick it. He's been placed on administrative leave after the throat punch that you just witnessed. God only knows if it'll go any further than that. But Dan, as of right now, we've got the administrative leave part of this.
I mean, like you said, yeah, it's like you have stages. Like it could be someone's named stages of police lack of accountability here. Stage 1 usually involves administrative leave while an investigation goes on to figure out the facts of the case. But what it really is the cops investigating the cops. And so what you end up getting is a report that ends up going something along the lines of, this cop was doing everything they were doing in their manual and their training, and the person was resisting arrest and proposing all this like danger to the public or whatever. And so it's unfortunate, but he did what had to be done. And so nothing's gonna be done here. It's unfortunate that we've sort of internalized as a country that the way that police officers arrest people is usually like very often, far too often, involved with life-threatening violence. Throat punches can potentially be lethal if like done a certain way. So like, I again, and this is unfortunately not through any fault of your own, but just the fault of the country we live in. Not the first time I've been on the damage report where I've had to like point out and say that like the cop here is more focused about himself and his own feelings than the person whose life he just put in danger. Because like, last time I was on, there was that cop who did the pit maneuver and there was a rollover on the street. And his first thing was, oh God, looks like I gotta call this in and phone this in. Not, oh no, I wonder if this woman who ended up being pregnant is actually doing okay. So you see this from the cop in the video. You're going to see this institutionally from the cops, period. They only care about covering their ass.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there's details about the initial altercation, and they say that the woman had been arguing with employees and trying to hit them. And you can see in the video that she tries to bite the cop, which for some people who are, incredibly deferential to state power and love to see cops beating the hell out of citizens, well, that's all the excuse you need. She tried to bite him so he can do literally whatever he wants. And if he was predisposed to punch a woman in the throat, well, that's his excuse to do that. If he'd had a weapon on him, he could have used that. Like that for many Americans. Oh no, you didn't comply in exactly the ever-shifting way that I believe you should. So then the cops are allowed to do whatever it is that they think they need to do and have secretly been wanting to do this entire time. And to that I say no. Maybe this is weird. I have different expectations for random people and for cops. We give them the ability to dole out lethal violence, and in return, I get to have the expectation that they will be a little bit more restrained in their use of violence and a little bit more proportional when they begin to dole it out. The woman tried to bite him. That to me does not immediately merit trying to destroy her throat with your fist. That big guy felt like he needed to punch her in the throat. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not as hot for authority as some people are, but that's not, I think, a reasonable conclusion to that interaction.
Like, I'm just sick personally, John, of feeling like I had more training and discipline on like how to restrain and take down people when I was like 12 learning martial arts than it appears that any cop in the United States has. About like, I feel like one of the things you're supposed to know is like, hey, sometimes in the field, you might have to arrest someone who does not want to be arrested. Here are some techniques you can use to like, like protect yourself, but also like maintain the situation. Also, it's usually not one cop there, it's usually like several. So there could be some backup here, but like I am tired of seeing these excuses from these cops and excuses from people who claim to be about making sure there's no tyrannical forces acting on behalf of the government, but also put like Blue Lives Matter stickers on their cars. Maybe they're hoping they're not getting pulled over or something, but it's not just like a hypocrisy. It's just a straight like ignorance at this point. It's a horrific injustice because it's resulting in people potentially losing their lives or having serious injuries done onto them. It should not stand.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, it really gets to what you were alluding to, which is one of the overriding problems that's bigger than any individual story, which is the cops are doing this sort of thing because that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to always be terrified that they're about to be killed by whatever, by a car, by a weapon, whether it exists or not, by a woman who's already being restrained. That woman in that video, you don't know, she could have killed him with her bare hands at any seconds. That's how cops are actually trained to think. And if you're scared, and you will be thanks to our training, you should be ready to use lethal force. And so you get stories like this where they knock out a woman. You get stories like we've seen of young black girls in high school being body slammed on concrete because they weren't complying in the way that the cop wanted. The story that Dan was talking about, the woman didn't pull over in the exact way the cop wanted. She was pulling over, just not in the same way that he wanted. So he flipped her SUV over. This is a massive problem, okay? That's bigger than any one story. And it sucks that we got out a year of protests against the cops. And the only thing that seems to have come out of it is conservatives doubling down on their support for cops, unless the cops are trying to stop them from storming the Capitol, in which case you can kill them with Trump flags. But outside of that, they're even more deferential of state power. They're even more predisposed to want to lick the boot that's on their neck. Because you have stories like this coming out every day. We can't necessarily cover all of them, but these are pervasive. Any final thoughts?
No, just that, John, that these stories are pervasive. They happen every day at levels that we can't possibly cover, not just for our own mental sanity, but just because of time. They're happening all the time. And so
exactly.
It's, as a lot of stories end, the ball is in the court of the Democrats who we elected and fought for to get elected to actually make some changes here, or actually at least make some statements about this, and for people to pressure them to do so, because it can't just be on us. There's only so much that can be done against a super militarized police state like this.
Exactly. Okay, well, with that, we're gonna take our second break. But when we come back, man, Giuliani, what happens when you're powerful, influential, and nobody likes you? Well, books get written revealing all your secrets. So we're gonna be revealing a few of those after this. Okay, everybody, I'm seeing messages that the Twitch chat has reverted to subs only. I don't know why that happened. It's not, I don't think, intentional, but anyway, we will see about that. What's going on out there in the audience? Peter Hamby says Victoria's secret greater than Karen's exposure. Yeah, she would have preferred that it had stayed a secret. That was kind of the thing. But the thing was, she knew she was being filmed initially. Think about the entitlement that Dan was talking about. That with a camera pointed in your face, you're like, I'm gonna hit that person. After months and months and months of these tapes coming out, you still think, I'll probably get away with it. I don't know. Maybe she just watches too much soccer. They are being filmed throwing themselves to the ground to pretend that they've been injured, but they still think they're gonna get away with it. Anyway, Zombie says, Texas law states that Dems can be arrested. Constitution says the right to peaceful protest. They're gonna go with the Texas law there. Dragon Dancer says, hi dragons, hope you're all having a great day. We are so far, thank you very much. Let's see. Jason R says, if Hot Wheels are art, the Dems, when they get back, Governor Brown in Oregon should return the favor. I'm not totally following Jason, but thank you for the super chat. Wayne says, and this is with qualified immunity, would he be more thoughtful if he didn't have that shield? That's a great point. Maybe the Dems could talk about that a little bit, but you can't even get all of them to get on with that, or get on that idea. Let's see, Kuda Jarnak subscribed for 11 months. Thank you very much for that, almost a year with us. Dragon 007 hit 4 months on Twitch, says, what's up dragons? Thank you, what's up with you? The artsy fartsy dragon gifted 5 tier 1 subs, much appreciated. Oh geez, let's see, Nibbler Wolf said, post-rape, the first time I went to a grocery store, I got an Uber and broke down in the parking lot, and he brought me back home due to my mental state. Tears panicked, her approach was definitely wrong, but I can relate with the feeling of terror at times. I hope both of them are okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think we're both trying to express the same sort of empathy, but again, it doesn't in any way absolve the person of beginning an altercation due to a sense of entitlement and racial animus. Once you're in it, then your issues might manifest and might make it worse. But again, that doesn't mean that you can try to strike someone in a store. But sorry about your experience, obviously. Megan KSS subscribed to Prime for the first time. Welcome, thank you for being here. Brandy Lou gifted 5 tier 1 subs. As always, Brandy Lou, thank you so much. Jules Paula gave 2 tier 1 subs, very nice of you. Let's see, Silver Zen subscribed for 12 months. Says, hold on, hey TYT, can you hold on to this for a bit? I'll be back for it next month. Well, I will see you next month, but there's a lot happening. You can't take a month off. Aaron the Butcher subscribed for 11 months. Rock QL for 12. Thank you very much for that. Over in the hashtag TDR live, I don't pay enough attention to the hashtag TDR live. I got to make sure that we get to a few of those. For a more perfect America says, if there were fewer guns in America, being a police officer would be safer. Just saying, yeah, that is objectively true. But you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to support the cops by giving them bigger guns, I guess, but making sure the people they go up against also have guns. There have been debates on like stopping particular sorts of ammunition that's effective against police body armor, and you can't even get the politicians to agree to that because as much as they say they love cops, they love the guns and the NRA more. And so when you put those two up against each other, they're always gonna come out in the same direction. Finally, we don't have time, but Michael, I will get to your super chat during our next break. Anyway, lots more news to get to. We'll be back after this. Okay, everybody, hold on to your butts. This is gonna be something. It's gonna get dirty, thanks to Rudy Giuliani, who's a filthy human being. Okay. Rudy Giuliani is the target of a number of different revelations coming out in some of these upcoming big political books. We'll turn now to Michael Wolff and his upcoming Landslide, The Final Days of the Trump Presidency. I read the name of the author because as always, grain of salt there, evaluate these claims based on the sources that have been provided and who's coming up with it. But that said, there's a few different things about Giuliani that Michael Wolff is revealing, including this. Shortly after the November general election, Rudy Giuliani turned his focus to assembling a national legal team for then President Donald Trump's campaign, which obviously would drive quite a bit of news for several months as they traveled throughout the country, losing case after case after case after case, with the occasional break to fart COVID onto someone. But anyway, Giuliani, who was at that point Trump's personal lawyer, needed to bring together a national team in a day, with lawsuits set to go out after November 14th. There wasn't a lot of time between the election and when these court cases started. So initially, it got off to a rough start, with the former New York City mayor operating out of a conference room in the campaign's Virginia headquarters that was filled with trash. Michael Wolff says, quote, the room had not been cleaned since election day, 11 days before. Refuse filled the trash cans and overflowed onto the floor. There was a heavy, sour or rotting smell, and the trash was a week-old buffalo chicken sandwich mixed with Giuliani's reliable farting. I actually hadn't read that part of the quote. Man, Michael Wolff is doing Rudy Giuliani dirty there. But look, I like the commitment to the bit. This is the least successful legal effort nationally in recent years. Why not start off in a disgusting, garbage-filled conference room, Dan?
Yeah, I very much come into this the same way you do, John, with like, okay, this is another Michael Wolff banger. I remember when Fire and Fury was treated by the political press as, wow, I can't believe that these things we've basically been talking about Trump doing and being and acting as are actually written in this like scathing, hot book. And just like, okay, whatever, we'll be talking about admittedly more boring, but honestly more important things in the next 2 weeks anyways, as that moves on. But these give you really colorful details into things that we got little bits and glimpses of. You know, there's the whole the Four Seasons total landscaping thing that Giuliani's you end up getting, because it was very clear that the Trump campaign was a very slapdash operation at that point, as if it wasn't a slapdash operation in 2020 and 2016 beforehand that just won by a miracle there. But like it's with these Giuliani stories, you're kind of just getting a little bit more solidification of things you already know. And so I think it's important, John, to be like, you're not learning anything necessarily from Michael Wolff's book or these like specifically like particularly juicy sort of details. The big picture, the big thing you're learning, whether some of these details are like true or accurate or not, is that the idea of power and meritocracy that we have in this country, that is, these are the best and the brightest. These are like clean, perfect people who know exactly what to do and are just thinking the boldest things. And these are claims that they make themselves. No, these are just like a bunch of, honestly, a lot of bros who are just barely putting it together, flying by the seat of their pants, trying to make the big boss happy. And that's representative of a lot more of reality in this country in halls of power than a lot of the stories you get told in the world.
I think that is a great point. They did a worse job than normal hiding it day by day. I mean, that press conference, which you alluded to, is like the ultimate example of that. Their inability to put together like any legal argument that makes sense is another, despite having unlimited resources in terms of lawyers, in terms of money. They just couldn't do it. Look, the actual details about the garbage and stuff like that is disgusting. It's consistent with what we know about Giuliani. Like on a personal level, and again, maybe this is just me being soft-hearted or whatever, like it makes me really wonder why no one in his orbit, friends or family, is helping this guy out. I'm not talking about Trump, I'm talking about Rudy Giuliani. Like they describe him as being constantly drunk as he's doing this. Now, zooming out, like he's still my enemy because he's trying to take down democracy. But you would wonder, why isn't any one of the people, there's gotta be people who like him, why aren't they helping him? Like he's gallivanting around the country, drunk constantly, humiliating himself in pursuit of a wannabe tyrant's hold on power. Help him. Like I would help Dan if he started. When Dan starts doing that, I will help him because we're friends, okay? Anyway, it does get a little bit darker and substantive, if a little bit less, well, I don't want to say sexy when it's about rotting chicken sandwiches and him farting all the time. But anyway, it gets more substantive.
Not to kink shame.
Not to, no, totally not. If it's your thing, as it might have been for Ellis. Anyway, before the race was called in Michigan for Biden, we find out Rudy Giuliani wanted the former president to preemptively declare victory in the key swing state. It also apparently was true of Pennsylvania too. That was his advice. And so like through this, Giuliani had too much to drink, even in these meetings where he's trying to get Trump to declare victory. He's quoted as saying, "We've won, we need to declare victory. If we don't say we won, they will steal it from us. Look, we've won Michigan." You had, one of the aides pointedly saying that Trump had not won the state, that it hadn't been called yet. We have to say we won it, otherwise they will steal it. And one wonders if that is largely responsible for Trump taking that up as his thing. Trump is quoted as saying much the same, not here in the Michael Wolff book, but there's a Michael Bender book coming up, a Wall Street Journal journalist who says on the night of the election, this is how Trump was responding to it too. And partially because he has surrounded himself by lackeys who are repeating the same sorts of insane stuff. That said, Dan, I don't think you're gonna find much of that to be particularly surprising. How about a feud with Sidney Powell? Another big figure in the league.
I love me some feuds.
Okay, well, so as Sidney Powell, former assistant US attorney, became one of the faces of the legal team, tensions unfolded with Rudy Giuliani. During an outburst, Giuliani, who at that point again was personal lawyer, reportedly described Powell as crazy. After Giuliani questioned some of Powell's more bizarre election theories, she snapped back at the former New York City mayor saying, quote, "I didn't come here to kiss your effing ring." And this seems sort of consistent with some of the early reports we'd gotten of these like danger room style things where they'd bring in all, like Michael Flynn would be there and they'd bring in all these figures and they were all sort of competing with each other to have influence over Donald Trump. They ostensibly all have the same goal, to keep him as president, but very different strategies. Sidney Powell was talking about releasing the Kraken and spreading more of the straight conspiracy theory stuff. Rudy Giuliani was focused more on the voter fraud, but this is all grift at the end of the day. So despite the fact that they should be natural allies, they have the same goal, they're working for the same man, it really is about them. And so it seems natural that at some point it would, come to metaphoric blows.
Yeah, that's one aspect of a lot of what you're getting here at, is that the reason why no one's coming to protect Giuliani or save him is because he is surrounded by people, probably even in his family too, because I think his son's running for office or something now, trying to offer those coattails. But like you're surrounded by people who by their nature are self-dealing. They're around an environment where you have to be looking out for yourself at all times. And there's very little room for collaboration if you aren't planning like 3 steps ahead to backstab them. So of course no one's gonna help Rudy Giuliani, but like I'm kind of like laughing in the background here because I like to imagine like how Rudy Giuliani, how he went from being called America's mayor to now like having the demeanor of one of your like drunken uncles or someone older in your family at a Domino's game where they've had like 6 too many Modelo's to drink and they're just like completely bloviating. But this is like political strategy here. This is the same demeanor of like your drunken uncle playing Domino's at a family get together, but like this is like actual political strategy happening here. It's been an interesting fall to watch Rudy Giuliani kind of like go from this America's mayor, which was already like, marketing from the Republican Party thing to now this sort of, I guess, representation of the Trump administration of being like sort of a shell of his former self, but also just like representing geriocracy and just general mental decay.
Yeah. And like we pointed out, I think it was last week, in the end, like Trump won't even pay him for the legal services. Like he set up that disgusting garbage legal defense room and they won't pay him for it. And so he started crowdfunding and he got 100 donors. He wanted $5 million. And 100 people are like, I guess I'll help you a little bit. You were loyal for a bit. And that's it. What a sad end to America's mayor. Anyway, let's mix things up with the little bit of time that we have remaining and jump into what everybody tuned in for, sports news on the Damage Report. Let's do this. Some of the recent developments in the European Championship have resulted in an incredible outpouring of racist sentiment against players. Not new in the world of football. Racism is sort of a baked in part of it, but it's gotten particularly disgusting recently. There was this study that found an outpouring of directed racial abuse on Twitter at a particular group of players. You've got Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, and Bukayo Saka, the targets of abuse after they missed spot kicks in a penalty shootout with Italy. And so they did their best as athletes and came up short, so why wouldn't that result in multiple nations showering them with racism afterward? Let's see, you had a mural in the city of Manchester depicting Rashford celebrating his charitable work, defaced in a way police have called racially aggravated. And so look, we've got more details that we're gonna get to, including responses, but while I haven't been following the European Championship, I'm not that into sports, Dan. The fact that it delved so naturally seemed to sort of escalate into race-based attacks against these players seems consistent with the anecdotal sports following that I've done over the years.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of worldwide soccer, even though I think one of the beautiful things about football is it's called worldwide, but American show, so I'll say soccer now. Is that it's such an international like sport. You see it played in some of like the poorest areas of the world by like kids who are just like, this is the thing they've got to do. And it's like kind of charming and like uniting in that way on all different continents. And all those same continents where there's professional or semi-professional leagues where you have cameras there and fans in the stands, you also get a lot of racism. And it's like been covered not a lot in like major sports media and like in a lot of weird ways. I'll give a shout out to my friends Caesar and Bamit. We made a podcast who are also on Power Report with me sometimes, who do cover this. In addition to covering like world soccer, they're talking about how in a lot of these cases you'll go to matches in Italy or in South America or wherever where you have, because of racial tensions that are happening in that country that are deeply related to the politics of that country. And generally these things do fall on like fair skin versus darker skin lines and boundaries here. You get instances of racism from players and from the stands. And I will say one thing, John, because you started the show by saying a London perspective, but I'm a proud Manc from Manchester. And so I know like we can definitely in Manchester, like it's generally seen as a largely, metropolitan city, largely liberal. But that doesn't mean like you don't have in these places, there are people who have been fed the Brexit sort of nationalist nonsense that's been going on there. And so they're going to be doing these different racially aggravated attacks. But overall, you also see, not to go on into this, but like there's I think a study or something that like domestic violence goes up whenever like there are cases when England loses soccer matches. So this is a larger issue with like that island kind of being sore losers with things ever since they lost their little empire. And so it's a larger issue with the people in the country and the way they handle sports and like internalize their feelings onto sports when these are just people, right? These are people who are doing their damnedest and doing their best, and actually did a pretty good showing because they made it to the semifinal, like nearly won for the first time in decades. So at least is that.
Yeah. Well, let's briefly point out too that some of the people who seemingly are doing kind of the right thing now, speaking out against the racism, like Boris Johnson tweeting this England team deserve to be lauded as heroes, not racially abused on social media. Those responsible for this appalling abuse should be ashamed of themselves. Well, look, free of context, yes, you are right, Boris Johnson. But you're also part of a movement that has been attacking these players in other ways, and not just Boris Johnson. So you have before and during this tournament, the England players have been kneeling before the matches, similar to some of the protests that we've had here in the US. That has angered members of the England fan base because obviously, for the same exact reason in America, some people are awful. So you had Boris Johnson, as well as people like the Home Secretary Priti Patel, specifically asking to condemn the England fans who booed, but condemning the players for their protests before. Patel had said, I just don't support people participating in that type of gesture politics to a certain extent as well. So, as was pointed out on Twitter, you don't get to stoke the fire at the beginning of the tournament by labeling our anti-racism message as gesture politics and then pretend to be disgusted when the very thing we're campaigning against happens. With that context, yeah, I guess saying people shouldn't tweet the racist stuff is good, but what is your actual commitment to this? What is the substance of your support for these players? Does it only go as far as don't tweet at them? When you're attacking their completely justified protests, you are laying the groundwork for this sort of race-based abuse to come later on. Dan, any quick final thoughts? We're almost out of time.
Yeah, just that I think it's kind of amazing how the same rhetoric about, kneeling before sporting events that didn't really make a difference that much in America, or like, I mean, didn't make so much of a difference in England or Canada, are now spreading to all these other countries. They're getting mad about the same things because their right wing are using the same sort of culture war nonsense to stoke fear in their base politically.
Yeah, exactly. A completely quiet, silent, peaceful protest, too much for some people. Anyway, thank you to our linear audience for joining us here. We've got more coming for YouTube and Twitch, so stick around after this. Hello, Twitch and YouTube. Welcome back for what remains of the Damage Report with me, and much more importantly, Dan Evans. As always, Dan, thank you for joining us. I know you're very busy. You do a lot of work. You produce a lot of content, so thank you for being here.
Just for you, John. Happy to do it.
Thank you. We're here now, but in not that much longer, less than 30 minutes. You don't want to go anywhere because you know what's coming up. You already know what I'm going to say. Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, joined as always on Tuesdays with by Adrienne Lawrence. She's going to be there. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be a debate with Kevin McGarry, and Terrence Woodbury will be coming on as a guest as well. That is coming up in less than a half an hour after the Damage Report, so definitely stick around for Indisputable. We have your votes on our poll. So we had asked you, will the Texas Dems succeed in their efforts to block the Republican voter suppression bill? And people went to tyt.com/polls to vote. It was actually more split than is usual for our polls, I think. 32.38% of you said yes, but 2/3 thought no. So I tend to be on the side of the no here too, but I like the optimism for those fighting in Texas. So thank you to everybody who went and voted on that. Before we get to our news, let's see. Non-Human Humanist says Rudy doesn't have help because he's not in a union. Is there a vampire union, or is Rudy a revived monster pieced together from dead body parts? Damn. Non-Human Humanist burning him worse than Michael Wolff did. Leilu Dragonfly says the victim of the Victoria's Secret Karen is, and then puts the name. Why do I feel weird identifying people involved in these stories? I almost always do when it's assaults and stuff. She has a GoFundMe that's raised $40,000. Okay, you can find her on YouTube. Sorry if this has already been shared. No, I had seen a reference in some of the news pieces to the GoFundMe. I didn't realize how much had been brought in. And by the way, just to tie together two of our stories, it's brought in far more money than Rudy Giuliani's legal defense crowdfunding. So that's funny. That's justice in America. And by the way, although obviously the situation is serious, and you never know when one of those videos could turn even more violent. Like we say, a woman who's trying to hit a woman could do God knows what soon, and God knows what'll happen when the cops come. I did like at least that the narrator, she seemed to be having a little bit of fun with it. Dan, did you pick that up? The joking and stuff, like it's a tense situation, but she was trying to make it a little bit of fun for TikTok.
I've told people about this interesting thing that I've noticed, like not all, but a lot of other Black people do, where they deal with like tense situations with like humor and like a little bit of anxiety, because part of it's just like, it's one answer. It's that we've been through these situations in our lives so many times. So you can remove yourself from the tension of the situation and go, okay, what are the steps you're gonna make? Oh, you're choosing to do that one this time. Oh, that's an interesting move. Interesting form on that part. It almost becomes like a sports announcing kind of thing, because I have to take it like sports to not get angry, John.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Thank you, Senic Dan, for becoming a tier 1 YouTube member. Much appreciated. And Ab3 asked, and I think I know the answer to this, asks, is that MF Doom on the wall?
Yes, that is
Dan,
right behind me. And it's MF Doom's. Oh, whoops, sorry. But also it's MF Doom's 50th, well, it would have been MF Doom's 50th birthday had he not mysteriously passed away last Halloween. So happy birthday, Doom.
Yeah.
And also happy birthday, Skip, awesome, who is making the visuals work in the control room for this. So Doom, Skip, you're both great people. One of you's alive though, so at least
happy
there's
birthday, Skip. That's true. Geez, a good eye on the audience member to see that. Happy birthday, Skip, and Sophie's mom. Apparently, I love to give Skip crap, but Skip is awesome, very nice guy, great part of the team. So happy birthday, Skip.
Happy birthday, Sophie's mom.
And we turn from good people to a different sort as we get back into our news. Billionaires have been competing recently to get into space because they have endless money and nothing productive to spend it on, so why not? And those billionaires, Richard Branson and the head of Amazon and Jeff Bezos as well, have been criticized. Elon Musk is not having those criticisms. So he tweeted, like kind of a haiku, I guess. He tweeted, those who attack space maybe don't realize that space represents hope for so many people. It's quite deep, poetic almost, from this warrior poet, Elon Musk. Anyway, Dan, seems like a fair point. I think that the critics are attacking space and it needs to stop.
Yeah, space where no one can hear you cancel. No, the thing I will point to in a G-rated fashion, a Tribe Called Quest song called The Space Program, where the refrain is, there's no space program for parentheses black people. The idea being that these aspirations of going to space, all these things it's a very classist sort of thing. It's a very idealistic thing of, oh, there's no possible way we can do anything about the major environmental, systemic, institutional issues that are happening on our planet Earth that works pretty well for us humans generally, like scientifically, miraculously well for us. And if we tried a little bit more effort, we could actually, make a difference there. But instead, no, like we're putting all of our hopes into like leaving this planet and then using science that we very much don't understand to going to another planet and then colonizing that, which is part of the problem that's on Earth that we're ignoring, and then using that to build a new civilization because that civilization will be more peaceful and more hopeful and won't have many of these societal problems that we're learning from on Earth, and that's why we're solving them on Earth. So like there's a logic here that people like Elon Musk, who tries to be this environmentalist sort of billionaire who tries to seem like super scientific and smart about this, it's very clear when it's branding and when it's just like a billionaire dick measuring contest, because like Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos are all trying to race themselves into low space orbit so that they can continue to make billions of dollars off the private space industry, which was made private by subsequent Republican presidents. Otherwise, these would be NASA rockets with American and people from across the world, scientists, going up there for the betterment of scientific knowledge that we can all benefit from, not just for a billionaire dick measuring contest.
Yeah, exactly. And and we'll get to the government angle soon because we have one more rich a-hole who wants to get involved in this. It's like a big fight. Like, hey, I'm also an a-hole and I have a lot of money. Let me be a part of the story. Like Elon Musk isn't satisfied to just watch Branson and Bezos get attacked because, by the way, Elon Musk bought a ticket on one of these, so he knows he's gonna be attacked. And the thing is, like, I like space. I want people to go to space. I'd previously been kind of supportive of the one way to Mars, which turned out to be a massive scam or whatever. But I want it to happen, and I do think there are benefits to it. It does represent hope. The issue is that I don't think that the bar is very high for what these billionaires need to do to still be able to do their space stuff and not get attacked. Here's one thing you could do: pay your goddamn taxes. Like, I know everybody else has forgotten about the ProPublica thing, but we're not going to. Elon Musk's effective true tax rate, according to their analysis, is 3.27%. Bezos is 0.98. And they got that way by buying and manipulating our government, turning the resources of our nation and the efforts of our government to benefit them, not people. People who need hope, but also need solutions to their problems. And hope, I guess, is cheap from the point of view of Elon Musk. Solutions a little bit more complicated, requires a little bit more money. He might have to actually pay his taxes. And the thing is, if you want to be Lex Luthor or whatever and live like him, then you also get the reputation. If you want to be an a-hole that like flies off to space and gives a big middle finger to the whole planet, you can do that. You just also don't get to be cool. And the issue for Elon Musk is he really wants to have his a-hole and eat it too. He wants to be a jerk and be liked and be funny and cool and go on SNL and tweet things like this image that he definitely stole from someone who didn't credit. Toddler car seats and gamer chairs are the same, with his mind being blown. To which I say, build something. Like seriously, you're super smart and you got all this money, all these engineers. Go make something, stop tweeting stupid memes, you idiot. Or be an idiot, but you're not cool. Being an out of touch billionaire is the lamest thing ever, and he needs to accept that. Anyway, sorry, Dan, what do you think about the gamer chairs?
No, honestly, you hit every point I will. Obviously, I'm sitting in a gamer chair right now, being a little bit biased, but I'd rather sit in a gamer chair than a guillotine. And that might be Elon Musk's future, the way he is playing his cards right now. Because like everyone institution, like people institutionally don't like Elon Musk. Like the federal government, when they're doing all these different investigations into all of these different antics and things like that, they're not privy to this. And I think people are over time starting to see like, hey, the way Elon Musk just takes advantage for all of the brilliant work his employees and his workers do, while putting those employees and workers in unsafe working conditions. There are reports of like racism at a Tesla factory that was being like covered up potentially. There's a certain balance here that I think people aren't seeing the other side of Elon Musk. They're just like getting into the fandom and the nature of this. But we've been in this sort of like Tesla Elon Musk fandom thing for about 10 years. I think it's starting to break a little bit. If I have anything to do about it, that's for sure.
Yeah, don't like, I don't understand the fans of a lot of people. Like we found out this morning, I think it was Sophie or Marissa told me that Megyn Kelly has a podcast, and I was like, tried to imagine who's listening to it. I don't know. But it's weirder to be a fan of Elon Musk. Honestly, if you're watching this and you're a fan of Elon Musk, tweet me and I will give you something better to be into. Something you can become a fan of, it'll be really cool and interesting. You become obsessed about it. It'll be a better use of your time than looking up to this pathetic, petulant, try-hard billionaire. But speaking of pathetic, petulant billionaires, let's turn to this. Donald Trump wants to make sure that the recent national strike back against billionaires going to space and criticizing these billionaires is not caring about us and just caring about their own aggrandizement. He wants to be involved in that, so he threw himself into the conversation, letting people know they love sending rocket ships up, and I made it possible for them to do this. I actually said to my people, let the private sector do it. These guys want to come in with billions of dollars. Let's lease them facilities because you need certain facilities to set up rockets. And we have those facilities. We have the greatest facility. So stupid, it's not yours. They're not yours. He also claimed, by the way, that he reopened NASA. It wasn't closed. What are you talking about? He just needs to be involved in some way. Like he's not, he hates Bezos. Bezos is getting attacked. He can't just stand and watch that. He still has to get himself involved, even if that means he'll get attacked too. And honestly, let's send Trump to space. There's like it gotta be at least a 0.1% chance it doesn't come back. Can we crowdsource a ticket on one of these space planes for Donald Trump?
My favorite part of all this is like when Trump does the thing he does, where he has to be the godfather, the person who invented this thing. Like one of my favorite interviews Donald Trump ever did was really early on, before he even got elected, with The Economist. It was very early on into his presidency, where he claimed to invent Keynesian economics, like the idea of, priming the pump. That was my idea. You prime the pump of the economy, and then all the money comes out. That's exactly that's my thing. You do. You prime the pump, right? Yeah, sure. And at least in this case, Trump is saying something that's like half true. You did have decades of largely Republican governments defunding and taking money out of NASA and government-funded space programs and funneling them to contracts to private companies to do space things, which is just shifting it into another part of the society. You could have it under the United States government role and then make it be a little bit more equitable. We can use this science and research in a better way. I don't know, maybe we treat the workers a little bit better. But like, yeah, this idea that Trump did something that Republicans were doing long before him, it just shows the man's ego is like unlimited.
Yeah, that Republicans were, and that look, this is one of the areas where I think both parties have done something bad. Obama was involved in some of these deals as well. Like, but
Obama funded Elon Musk. Obama, like, really fast, because I always have to point this out. Elon Musk was about to go under with Tesla and Solar City and a lot of his under electric vehicle things, but through a government thing that Obama was doing through the stimulus program, specifically targeting green energy companies, they got a bailout, and that, along with some other like private sector funding, helped Tesla make the Model S, which got them to the point where they are today in car manufacturing. So
exactly,
either America could have made Tesla and like it could have been a government-run company because we gave them that much money, or we move it to the private sector. And there's pros and cons of doing that. I think this was a con in this situation.
Yeah, but some of the stuff that they've made is great. As Dan said, I appreciate what the actual engineers have produced there. I just think it would be better off getting some of these jerks out of there and have their public. Like if they just want to be meme lords on Twitter, then let them do that. Okay, stop pretending that they're involved in actually creating the cars or whatever.
He's not even good at memes.
Okay. No, it's a chair. Yeah, you chose two chairs that are both black. Ha ha ha. Anyway, okay. Let me see what's going on in the audience just for a sec. We'd see, this is Zane said on the YouTube chat, America's mayor, more like America's mayonnaise man. When they have an emoji on there that actually looks quite a bit like Rudy Giuliani, oddly enough.
Oh man.
Anyway, so Leilu Dragonfly says that the woman who had filmed the video that we showed you, TikTok banned her account. What did she show that was ban worthy? Is it because it's involved in a legal matter or something? That seems unwarranted. Terry, thank you for your super chat. Michael Weber says malpractice insurance for all police officers and requiring them all to have it. One time an insurance company has to pay out, they're denied coverage. Yeah, there's been some talk about something like that with the police needing to have insurance for it, but I don't know, nothing's ever done. Anyway, okay, we have time, I think, for one, maybe two more stories. So let's jump into this. Juul has been having a rough couple of years, and they have been desperately looking for some way to try to bring back a little bit of the, I don't know, good feelings that consumers had towards them a few years ago. But some of their efforts have been, at the very least, shady. And we're gonna break down one. The reporting that we're gonna be discussing here is available at The Prospect. David Dayan, who we recently had on to talk about a different story, wrote this up. You should definitely go look at it. An awesome article there. But what you need to know is that Juul, which had previously been like a really powerful, influential company in the vaping space, their dominance fell apart after about 1,000 people contracted a mysterious vaping-related illness in the fall of 2019. I know a lot of people have forgotten about that because of the pandemic, but it was so big actually that I don't know if you remember, but Donald Trump was like talking about getting involved. He was talking about it at press conferences. But anyway, there started to be this investigation into the marketing to teenagers. It was just a bad 1-2 punch for Juul. So within weeks of that, Walmart stopped stocking e-cigarettes. Television ads for the product came down. Cities and states across the country began banning sales. And Juul eliminated the flavored vape pods that were most clearly designed to attract younger people. As a result of this, their market share in e-cigarettes dropped precipitously, almost falling in half. And eventually we will get a decision from the FDA about whether their products will still be able to be sold. So bad news in the past, potentially bad news coming in the future. So what did they do to try to recoup a little bit of the goodwill they'd formerly had? Well, they paid $51,000 to have the entire May and June issue of the American Journal of Health Behavior devoted to publishing 11 different studies that they funded, offering evidence that Juul products help smokers quit. So they didn't just pay for the studies. They bought the entire edition of the academic journal to then publish studies that they funded, which they will then point to as proof that there is a public health benefit to people still having access to their e-cigarettes. So that is, I know that we don't, like, not a lot of people get involved in academic journals and the product of peer review and everything. This is very much not how it's supposed to work in either aspect of that. You're not supposed to have one company wholly buying out a journal. And I guess it's possible they could legally do that, but the journal should be like so incredibly embarrassed. Like, I hope that this work that David Dayan is doing draws an incredible response against a journal for doing this. Like, that is so academically corrupt. But anyway, Dan, as a strategy, what do you think of it?
As a strategy, I think it's reminiscent of the way that corporations act with the government. I mean, if you can't beat them, buy them. It's just kind of always been the way that these companies work, especially in the post-Citizens United era, where you fund lobbyists, or you not just getting lobbyists to do an information campaign in Washington, DC, where you get like the political playbook sponsored by Facebook or Google or Pharma or whatever, right? But you get, but you also get these cases. I think David Dayan's piece highlighted a really interesting point that is super in the weeds of academia. And so, of course, Republicans claiming cancel culture, and we watch out for corruption. Colleges are never gonna think about this, but it's a matter that these like what David Dane's pointing out is that these journals exist kind of to justify the academic work that they're doing that is oftentimes not really seen by staff at these universities and these places of research. So it's a little bit, work politics happening within that. And so in order to justify that, hey, a company happens to come around with some nice funding here, and that company all of a sudden changes the power dynamics of the relationship to where that journal is reliant on that company's funding, in this case, Juul's funding, in order to continue to justify its existence to the university to continue long term. So we should ideally not have these journals in those situations, but also these journals need to have some level of integrity to make sure that like these things aren't happening, or there's got to be more public outcry for this. And at least there were a couple of I think board members who resigned ultimately after this, but
three of their board members resigned after that. So that's to their credit at the very least.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, and I really, the world of academic journals is, there's a lot to discuss about this because not everything that is published is peer reviewed first. Usually things are published and then they get peer reviewed and sometimes have to be redacted or adjusted or changed. And there's something beautiful about the scientific process there, but you also leave it wide open to information manipulation. And in the case of the FDA looking for studies that may or may not help Juul's case, I mean, the fact that Juul was able to shoehorn their paid for studies in here, I mean, it's like, what if Uber and Lyft, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do this or not. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. What if Uber and Lyft tried to use their own paid for studies saying that, drivers actually enjoy working for us and they do make a lot of money, and we're not coercing them to fill out any of these things on a form to make sure they keep their little jobs and money they do have so we don't pay them health insurance. What if they were allowed to send those reports as like fully unbiased research and present them as unbiased research when we all know that's not the case? There's a big danger when you mess with the flow of information. We saw that over the past 4 years, the Trump administration. We see that with the Republican Party day in and day out through their media apparatuses. So I'm really glad David Dane covered this.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I would be shocked if Uber was not doing things like that already. Especially when like we had the big ballot initiative here in California. I am sure they were doing stuff like that. Just out of curiosity, I, like many people, have been inside for the past year, and I'm not. You're a younger individual. Have you noticed any difference in the uptake of e-cigarettes over the past couple of years after all that health stuff came out?
I would say maybe there are some people who didn't, or were like a little bit warier on the fence of vaping and all that stuff, who no longer do so. But I think there's some people who still like, they would have smoked cigarettes anyways, and Juul's a little bit more convenient of a way to do that. And so they weigh the risks of cigarette smoking and they live their lives. I'm seeing a lot less of, the whole like vape niche things where people have these like major rigs, like I'm not gonna go into the details of it, but like the batteries makes it so you can blow these really large plumes of smoke, because those are the things that were shredding through people's lungs and putting people in the hospital. So I'm seeing a lot less of those on these streets out here, but I think Juul's still going to have their market just the same way any other cigarette company does, because there's unfortunately a market out there for that. You just got to deter people from cigarette smoking if that's the kind of thing you want to do.
Yeah. Well, Dan, that is unfortunately all the time we have, but thank you as always for joining us. Where can people watch your other content?
Follow me on Twitter at Dan from the Web, where I'll post about all the content that I'm doing when I have it. There's a new Audioface podcast where we reviewed new albums from Vince Staples, IDK, and more. And then Power Report, we'll be doing more Power Report episodes too. But I'm taking one of those John Oliver breaks where you just don't do a show for like 3 months and you come back and everything's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you are a DC-based journalist and you don't know who Olivia Rodrigo is, you should definitely follow Dan's work. He can get you up to speed with what the kids are listening to. Anyway, that's just what's going on Twitter. But Dan, as always, thank you so much. Hope you have a good day.
Appreciate you, John. Take care.
Thank you. And for those of you watching, we're about to leave. I'm gonna go have a talk with Chuck Rocha about what's going on in Texas, whether it's possible that it might succeed. But the show isn't over for you. I mean, this one is in a very real sense, but Indisputable is coming up with Dr. Rashad Ritchie and Adrian Lawrence. So you're definitely not gonna wanna go anywhere. You can go to youtube.com/indisputable to watch that. And until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
let's get it. Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to have you with us today. We have a lot of content to cover. Helping me break down news of the day, none other than attorney at law, TYT contributor, Adrian Lawrence will join us on the program. Also, in the bullpen, we have a guy who says every Black life matters, which is great. You would think we will be on the same page as it relates to critical race theory and also the movement for Black lives, but we are not. His name is Kevin McGarry, and Kevin will be on the program today. You don't want to miss that. And Terrence Woodbury will be with us as a guest to break down some of the new information as it relates to defunding the police. My top story. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not treating terrorists like terrorists in the United States of America. What if you committed an act of terrorism and you only received an additional 2 days in jail? But that is exactly what happened to this white supremacist who has been sentenced to 6 months with credit for time served, which means he's going to get an additional 2 days. 2 days for being a terrorist domestically in the United States of America. Let me remind you that the Capitol complex was on lockdown. 140 people injured. 5 people total died either right before, during, or right after. 1 person shot and killed. This was a terrorist attack. US Capitol rioter who joined a white supremacist gang while in prison for attempted murder pleaded guilty Monday to a misdemeanor related to the January 6th insurrection. The rioter's name is Michael Curzio. Michael was sentenced to 6 months in jail. Will be released now because he has been in jail since mid-January and will receive credit for time already served. Mr. Curzio should be sentenced to the 6 month statutory maximum, according to federal judge Carl Nichols. He said this during a hearing. He says, I am not in a position to be able to impose a longer sentence than that. I think that 6 month sentence is appropriate here. Mr. Curzio will have in 2 days served that entire sentence. Curzio is now the second Capitol rioter who has learned his fate. He will also have to pay a $500 fine for damage of property. Let's put up a picture of this terrorist. Okay, that's him. He was in prison for attempted murder. He's a member of a white supremacist gang. We don't say white supremacist organization here. They are gangs. They're not clubs. They're not membership organizations. They are gangs. I want to remind you of what happened at the US Capitol. Breaking and entering, criminal trespass, felony trespass, burglary, just to name a few, assault, disorderly conduct, obstruction of a police officer, just to name a few. He was able to plead to the simple charge of unlawful protest and nothing else, just unlawful protest. To break some of this down, we have attorney Adrian Lawrence. Adrian, heavy-handed, no, too light, perhaps. What are your thoughts?
No, I don't think it's heavy-handed at all. What they did there was completely and total, it really was the antithesis of democracy, and it was trying to unearth our entire system, overthrowing this coup. And then we've seen people get slaps on the wrist. There needs to be more. We really need to actually have significant penalties and punishment for these individuals who essentially shook our entire nation. These, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of Republicans in Congress pretend that, oh, it wasn't that big a deal. No, this was significant. It was scary for a lot of us here in the United States as well as abroad. If we do not send the message that there must be change, then who's to say that they won't do this again?
My law professor said that criminal law has two primary functions. One is punitive. It's meant to punish the individual, the wrongdoer. But the second is to send a very clear message to the rest of the public in order to shape public behavior. It is a cautionary message that is supposed to translate into all hell, we can't do that, because if we do, this will happen to us. When you take away both of those elements, and think about this, Adrian, you say punitive is nothing. This guy served time in prison for attempted murder. 6 months is nothing to him, and he really just has to do 2 more days after that sentence, and that's it. So the punitive is nothing. And then you have the public aspect of it, looking at this kind of light sentence and saying, okay, well, this is what happens when you commit an act of domestic terrorism against the federal government. And here's another part that cannot be missed in this narrative. If these individuals would have been black, if their last names would have been something like Muhammad, they would not have been handled this lightly whatsoever.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. That element that your professor is speaking of, that deterrence element, that is so incredibly important. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't respond well to deterrence when they realize that they enjoy a societal privilege where they know that they're not going to face as severe consequences as someone named Jamal or Muhammad. And that is those built-in inequities in our society that allow the individuals like those who rush Congress to do this and to feel like they can continue to do it again. And until our nation truly recognizes this domestic terrorism and white supremacy as being the problem, then nothing is going to change and people will continue to do it again and again.
Here's another part of the irony here. According to the Department of Justice, this individual is likely to be one of the few who receives the harshest sentence. And the reason is because individuals who plead guilty will not get the maximum under the cookie cutter approach of the Department of Justice. So here's what the DOJ has done. They've said, okay, if you just plead guilty, we're going to say you are only guilty of unlawful protest. You have to pay a $500 fine and you get to keep it moving. Well, this individual received the maximum in part, according to the report, because he was already in jail, denied bond because of his previous record, and because of his previous record. So the 6 months, $500 fine is actually on the extreme side of the prosecution based on the Department of Justice's approach to prosecuting these matters. Why, Adrian, have they decided to not look at each case individually, to interview witnesses, to obtain video footage, and to actually prosecute people based on an individual standard rather than this very general standard?
Oh, well, in part because that's what our democracy requires. You need to have evidence against that person. You need to form the mens rea, the actus reus. You need to show each and every individual element that, and we're also in a situation where a lot of these insurrectionists, they may claim that they have maybe a mental health issue or some kind of instability, or that they didn't know that the congressional building wasn't open in the Capitol, that they couldn't just walk in. You need to show that these people acted knowingly and actually engage in those actions. That's incredibly important to make and build and also to really go through with a case. So just because these individuals don't respect democracy and our legal process doesn't mean that prosecutors can just do away with it and hang them in the middle of the center of town.
Let me ask you this. Does this come down somewhat to manpower? Because obviously if you actually go through the evidence, you obtain the witnesses, you interview them, you get everything that you need to get in order to mount a full prosecution of each person, does it come down to we really don't have the manpower to do it?
I'd like to think the US government has plenty of manpower. It's a matter of, are they spending billions of dollars to fight in wars and to front on other nations, or are they actually protecting the people who are here in the United States? we have the money to do it. They hire special prosecutors all the time for the US Attorney's Office. There are plenty of lawyers, and arguably even being a lawyer, I'd say there are too many of us. And so there is no reason that they can't swear people in to essentially prosecute these people and ensure that they are held to justice. And we all know in the United States there are enough prisons and institutions to house these folks. So there should be no excuse whatsoever, because we know that if these individuals had a certain melanin count or a certain background and name, that there would be no question of whether we have the resources to get it done.
Yeah, this is quite fascinating, because we're seeing privilege being played out in front of us. I have not heard a Republican yet utter the words, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But I have heard them routinely characterize immature, misguided Black children who may take advantage of a bad situation, looting. Looting isn't good. Nobody says looting is good. But we're talking about 14 and 15-year-olds in a bad situation, irritated, frustrated. They don't know exactly how to express this anger, and they loot something. Well, a politician on the conservative side will say they have to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and they are deemed terrorists by conservatives. How is it that these white people who stormed the US Capitol, how is it they missed that narrative? How is it that the narrative does not stick to them, that they are in fact terrorists and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law?
Well, what the thought in our society, unfortunately, because we have one that is dictated by white supremacy, is a thought that white people are inherently innocent, that we need to realize that they could have had a bad day or made a misjudgment, whereas people of a certain melanin count, they essentially are already tagged as being criminals, as being unlawful and mischief and up to no good from the jump. So the fact that we don't get that presumption of innocence, that is why it's so easy to condemn us even when we are still in diapers. We can't win. And the unfortunate part of that is unconscious bias. Some of it is just blatant outright racism, but it does impact how our criminal justice system operates.
Let me take you to an individual who was prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law unlawfully. There's a story coming out of Texas. This is a very sad story, so I have to warn you before you watch any of this footage. It is graphic. Surveillance footage released by officials last Friday captured the moments leading up to the death of a man named Marvin Scott III. Marvin Scott was in custody inside of a Texas jail. 26-year-old male. He had less than 2 ounces of cannabis, very minor, extremely minor. And according to the family, he self-medicated with cannabis because he suffered from schizophrenia. That's just the reality. He had this very small amount of marijuana, and he was exhibiting strange behavior when he was arrested. I want to show a picture of this young man. That's him. That's Mr. Marvin Scott. Marvin Scott died at the hands of those jailers. The Collin County Medical Examiner ruled his death a homicide in April, and the cause was determined as fatal acute stress response in an individual with previously diagnosed schizophrenia during the struggle with officers. As for the officers involved in the incident leading to Scott's death, seven of them were fired in April, while an 8th resigned. However, one of the officers successfully appealed his termination and was eventually restated. We tried to find the pictures of all of these officers involved in the killing of Mr. Scott. We could not find all of their pictures, but I got all of their names. Let's put their names on the screen. Those are the names involved in the death of this young man. I want you to look at those names. I don't care what the criminal justice system says. they are responsible for the death of Mr. Scott. This is what happened in a grand jury. A grand jury statement goes, "We sincerely hope that the loss of Marvin Scott III will not be in vain. We are therefore recommending that a work group be convened as soon as practicable to study the events of March 14th for lessons learned in an effort to avoid any similar future tragedy." Now remember, they declined to indict. This grand jury declined to indict. But they said, you know what we need to do over the death of this man? Let's start a study group. Let's have a committee. Do we have that video? Let's play it. Now the video does not have any audio because this is part of the surveillance technology inside of the jail. Now he's in the jail, he's inside of a room where he cannot get out of, and they decide while he's handcuffed to still strap him down inside of a room that he cannot get out of. Because according to them, he started to act weird or strange. Well, he's suffering from schizophrenia. They strap him down and he stops breathing. He stops breathing. Medical professionals do come in and they try to revive him, as you can see right here, but it is too late. He is dead. He's gone. In his 30s, because of a small amount of cannabis and out of control police officers and jailers who had no regard for his medical condition, his mental health, nor did they care. Adrian, your thoughts?
It's incredibly disheartening. It was difficult to watch that, in part because you know that that's such a young life that has a future in front of them, but also the mental health element, that struggle there, that opportunity to help someone live a life that is healthy and balanced, that is there. And the fact that this went down all over cannabis, something that is not, some notorious drug out there that will kill you, that this is a drug that has been outlawed because of racist stereotypes, and now this man dies as a product of that. This is so incredibly unwarranted. And the fact is that the grand jury decides to say, hey, we're gonna have you go ahead and start a work group. Get out of here with that mess. This is completely unreasonable for the officers to respond this way when it comes to cannabis. Get out of here.
Yeah, and what's even more sad than what you see is that what you just saw does not happen independent of the system. This is part of the system expression. When you go to any county jail in the United States of America, you will find something. You will find that most, if not many, are there because of a mental health disorder. You will find that they don't deserve to be in jail, they deserve to get help. And you will also find individuals who aren't trained, but also don't give a damn about their actual well-being. Now, at some point in the criminal justice argument, we have to also highlight the dynamic of policing and corrections. Because after the police get you away from them, if you survive that interaction, you're now inside of a jail and you have a jailer. So literally, this man survived the interaction with the police, but did not survive his interaction with the jailers inside of that county facility.
Yeah, you can't tell me that this is something that was reasonable, that those officers acted reasonably. I don't care if the man had parking tickets or something else. The fact is that this was a low-level offense that didn't require this level of physical response. And also, the fact that they knew he was acting quote unquote weird is enough to let them know that this is not a corrective measure for law enforcement, that this is something for mental health authorities, that this is out of their wheelhouse, that this does not require force, that this requires actual aid and medical help.
And where was he going? He was already handcuffed. He was inside of the jail. He was inside of a jail cell. Where was he going? He was locked up. He was incarcerated. There was nowhere for him to go. You literally could have just put him inside of the cell, closed the door, and left him there. He would have been uncomfortable, but he would have been alive. He would have been alive. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip into Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We got a lot of comments. Let me try to get to as many viewer comments as possible. Don't forget to join us on the YouTube channel. It is free, it is easy. Indisputable TYT on YouTube, Indisputable TYT. Also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Indisputable TYT, and tag us, hashtag Indisputable TYT, to make sure we can read your comments while you're on social media talking about the show. TYT member Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says, you skipped a step, Dr. Richey. The cops to jail has yet another step that is racially biased. The courts, judge, prosecutors, and public defenders are just as bad. That's interesting. In this case, he got to see none of those people. He went straight to jail and to the corrections facility and died. But you're right, the entire criminal justice system is deserving of our criticism in cases like that, especially. YouTube super chat. BC4L says, I'm a leftist currently facing 9 charges from a protest on 8/17/19 in Portland. I stopped neo-Nazis from killing a man with a hammer. I hurt no one. My minimum sentence is 6 years. The law isn't equal. Wow. Good luck to you in your case, by the way. Thaddeus Naw, Philosopher's Stone Dragon, super chat says, the most dangerous part of using cannabis is being within 5 feet of a cop while in possession of or under the influence of cannabis. Good point. Marcus Stephan Coach says, thank you so much for that. Thank you. Melissa Prescott, friend of mine actually. Thank you, Melissa, for watching. What? Since when is an attempted murder convict sentenced to 6 months? That was his background. He got 6 months for the Capitol riot. Vanessa Maldonado, trying to disrupt the democratic process must be exiled, period. They do not want to live in a democratic country, then they must go. Jesus Fish Room. Okay, let me get this straight. A black woman votes while on probation, gets 5 years for voter fraud, but trying to overthrow the government gets you 6 months. The system is broken. Twitch. Cethian Rosen. People who get caught hacking government computers get more time. Facts. Fiddling Arrow says, because we weren't serious about stopping this. Yeah. And Soy Daffy, internet, do your thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, why do school teachers, after all of the YouTube clips, all of the news coverage about school teachers saying the N-word in class, why are school teachers still saying the N-word? Now they're doing it in a virtual classroom. Let me take you to Sacramento. Parents, students, and the community, they are calling for the removal of Sacramento City Unified School District teacher captured on an audio recording last month using racial slurs during online instruction. Her name is Catherine Sanders. Let's put up a picture of Catherine Sanders because she looks like a nice person. You see? That's Catherine Sanders. Catherine Sanders thought it was a great idea in her curriculum, in her teaching, to utilize the N-word. Catherine Sanders, who teaches Spanish at Kit Carson International Academy in Sacramento, said the N-word twice in a discussion with students, saying the word no longer has the meaning it once did. Well, she proved that theory wrong. The school board has since directed district staff to investigate the incident. Here's what she said. I don't have the audio, but I do have a transcript. And there are some telling things in this transcript. Let's put part of that on the screen. She said, I know the F word. Now, keep in mind, she did not say the word. She said the F word is something we hear constantly, said Sanders. It used to be a nasty word. Well, wait a minute, ma'am. If it's no longer nasty, why did you not just say the word rather than saying F word? But I will continue. It used to be a nasty word. Now it's like, and she actually says the racial term, the N word. She says the full word, which everybody says, or she used another racial slur or term using A at the end rather than ER. You get the picture, which is still horrible, ugly word as well, and it's not anymore somehow. That was her quote in the transcript. Fascinating. So you mean to tell me that you are equating a racial term to the F word, but you're not willing to say the F word to your students. You're willing to actually say the N word to your students. The entire lesson was about how words no longer have the same meaning or impact. Why not go ahead and say the F word? Because you thought you would get in trouble for saying the F word, but you didn't think you would get in trouble for saying the N word. You thought that would be acceptable. There's more. One student on the audio expressed discomfort, not wanting to participate in the conversation. So you got a woke student. Woke student says, no, that's not where it's at, Ms. Sanders. I'm not comfortable with that. However, Sanders continued asking students, and I quote, think about words that make things cheap. Oh, what a great conversation. I love it, Sanders said. I didn't anticipate this conversation. I'd love to keep going because I want to hear what you have to say. Well, here's what else people have to say.
Kids should be using this kind of foul language and then being so comfortable at playing it off and give a half-hearted apology, but understanding the damage that she's done. Ultimately, the school did not reflect on the ideas of parents, reflect on the ideas of the community, and not only did they have no consent from parents, nobody knew what was going on. So ultimately, we were left in the dark. So they get to think, well, I guess adults don't get consequences when they have bad behavior. You can have zero tolerance on me, a brown youth, a black youth, but the teachers, because of union, because of a district, passed Tuesday. And none of this stuff would have happened until we exposed it. So we're just trying to figure out when's implementation gonna happen in action, sir.
Well, Mr. Axis, again, this is a personnel matter. And I'd be happy to have follow-up conversation with you and other partners as well. I am here to say that I am on top of this. I take this very seriously.
You're not on top of a damn thing. I don't believe anything he's saying. And every time something like this happens, there's always this, well, it's a personnel matter. No. It's our matter now. It's a public matter at this point. You should have handled it when there was an incident or report previous to this recorded conversation, but you did not. Oh, I'm sure something has happened before in the background. And I love school teachers. I was adopted by a school teacher. My mama is a school teacher. I'm a professor because of the educator who helped raise me from a foster home. So this is not against school teachers. This is against this one school teacher. And if you go online right now on YouTube, you will find school teacher after school teacher using the N word out of context in their curriculum, refusing to use any other word. They're not using other profanity, they're only using that word. And even in this case, she didn't use the F word, she just said F word, but she used the actual racial slur, N word. She used it. She made a distinction. She showed you that it's different. She did that. Adrian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that she knows she couldn't use the F word and have gotten away with it. But clearly from what we can see from their school district, she can use the N word and actually get away with it. This is extremely problematic, just as that gentleman had pointed out. The fact is that these kids, not only do they feel like they've been subjugated and put in a situation where they've had to hear this derogatory term from someone who is supposed to be in a position of authority and also who has decisions over their lives and control over them, but also they see that there are no consequences attached to it. And it really also does reflect the ignorance of this teacher in particular, and almost like this sense of white superiority, this thought that she can say whatever she wants and that it will not be in any way of consequence to her and she will not suffer. And I totally understand unions, and I do understand the need to actually respect the union process, but at the same time too, she should have been suspended and prepared for termination with the quickness, because this is inexcusable and this is not something that you can necessarily divorce or disabuse from a teacher's ignorance at this point in her life.
Based on the transcript, she almost seemed excited about the engagement, even when a student tried to save her, tried to say, no, this is not something that I'm comfortable with. She says, oh, no, we're going to talk about it. And now she's excited about the conversation and then has the audacity to say that this wasn't the conversation that she wanted to get into. You started the whole conversation. Damn it, it's a Spanish class. I took Spanish. I didn't do great at it, but I took it. I never saw a Spanish teacher say the N-word or it be part of some kind of Spanish curriculum. Am I missing something here, Adrian? Is that part of the Spanish curriculum now?
Not to my knowledge. The closest I can think of is Negro. But that still, it doesn't justify what she said. And also it shows her line of thinking, the thought that she is entitled to use these words that come from long-term oppression that white people used against and continue to use against black people. She felt that it was okay to use this in front of her students to expose them to this. And then for her to say, well, gosh, I don't really think it's on me. That is some kind of real white supremacy there. And it's not something that should be a reflection of the Sacramento school district unless the school district steps up and says, we are not going to have this teacher or these principals, this is not okay.
And let me remind everyone one sentence in her transcript that should be damning. She said, and I quote, "It used to be a nasty word, and now it's like the word which everybody says." Ma'am, everybody doesn't say that, ma'am.
Nope.
Maybe the people you hang out with, maybe your friends, but everybody does not say that.
No.
Wow. Okay. I'm shifting gears. This is kind of complex, kind of. Remember, I've talked about how Karens of the world, the reason why they feel empowered is because typically there has been this hand in glove relationship as it relates to Karens and cops. So they will weaponize their Karenicity because the responding police or whoever comes as an authority figure will typically take the side of the Karen. Well, case in point, fake fainting Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
We actually highlighted this, Karen, briefly yesterday, but we did not have all of the video yet. Now we have a lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, this incident occurred in Short Hill Mall in Millburn, New Jersey, where police refused to escort a violent and aggressive and disorderly Karen out of a Victoria's Secret, okay? They told the black female who was attacked that there is nothing they can do. They are not escorting this violent individual away from the store or off the property. There's a new viral video. It shows the encounter between Abigail Elphick, that's the Karen, and Ijemo Ukinta, that's the black woman who was attacked and is recording. Here's some of that video.
Oh God, no, excuse, now you are, oh my God, oh my God. Do you see this? Oh my God, I never thought nothing like this would happen to me. She just tried to run and hit me. Don't record! Stop! You keep lying saying I'm threatening you, so I'm recording to protect myself. She calling the police on me now. And I can't believe this long and security not here. Yeah, get the cops here. This how black people be dying. You see this?
She is not suffering from a mental health disorder. I know that some people will look at that and assume so. She's a teacher's aide at a school called Cedar Grove. That is what she does for a living. What happened in that clip you just saw was her attempted assault and perhaps actual assault of a black female patron in Victoria's Secret. As soon as she realized that she was actually being recorded is when she decided to have a breakdown because she realized that a camera was rolling. When the mall security finally showed up, she explains to the mall security what happened, and it is useless. The mall security, they basically do nothing. The police arrive, and this is how they treat the African-American female who has already been assaulted. This woman has chased her around Victoria's Secret. When you look at the full video, this is how the police responded to this black female who was a victim.
So I was attacked in the mall, almost attacked in the mall. The manager, I had to run behind her. I chased around. He telling me he can escort me to my car, but she doesn't have to leave the mall.
Listen, I don't work for the mall. I can't order her out of the mall.
Yeah, but you work for Milburn. I was just almost assaulted in this mall. If the shoe was on the other foot and I would have tried to attack her white ass, you would have me escorted out this mall.
I wish you didn't feel that way.
I do feel that way. I do feel that way. I was just almost attacked and assaulted, and you telling me 3 times, and he can't get out. This the lady they won't kick out the mall. I'm a dog. I want to see if she act up in front of y'all, what y'all would do. I don't understand why she can't be escorted out the mall. She tried to attack me twice. See this? And she's crying and they just being all sympathetic to her tears. I don't care about her white tears. No, she should be escorted out the mall. She tried to attack me twice. You doing that because she white and she crying. I am nowhere near her. I don't have to move. I'm not breaking any laws. Now you get so aggressive with me, get aggressive like that with her. And the manager told them that she chased me. And they don't want to do anything but listen to her crying. Mind you, she crying, she chased me around the store. I should be crying.
The initial video that you took?
Yeah, I sure can. Can I have the email and the case number, please, for today? Because I'm definitely going to go straight, just because of your partner's smugness.
What's that now?
Yeah, the way your partner looked back at me like, like, I don't have time for that.
Literally, when you watch this full video, you have a white female chasing a black female throughout the store, yelling at her, threatening to hit her. This is all on video. You have patrons inside of the store telling the black female to leave. You have the police officer telling her she needs to move away from the situation. Now, I want you to imagine, what if this was a black male chasing a white female inside of Victoria's Secret? What if it was a black female chasing a white female to physically assault her inside of Victoria's Secret? Do you think the outcome would have been the same? You know the truth of that question. I don't care what political affiliation you may have. You know the truth of the question I just posed. Now, as of yesterday, this victim, this black female, posted 2 more videos on her YouTube page. She stated she intends to file a complaint against the responding officers because she didn't feel protected. It was also in these 2 new videos where we learned the name of the Karen in question. Here's some of that update.
I am at the police station. I have the police report, which is somewhat true. I'm happy I did record because even the officer stated that I only showed him the video of her laying on the floor. And mind you, they took her statement first because of course she called the police and she completely lied. She's trying to say I started videotaping her, causing her to have a panic attack. So I'm filing a complaint against the 2 officers that responded. I didn't feel protected. I'm also filing a complaint against, the mall security. She was concerned about losing her job and apartment if the video posted online. Do you see this? You can even see, look at all this concern for this lady. Nobody asked me, was I all right? Did I need medical attention? For all they know, I can have anxiety too, and this woman sent me into a panic attack. You're asking me why I'm complaining on your officers, and I'm telling you I can show you a video, and you're telling me you don't want to see the video.
I want to hear from your mouth.
Basically, they didn't protect me. They didn't try to make, from the woman that attacked me and chased me around the store. They didn't ask her to leave or anything. I've never heard of such a thing. Because if I was chasing her around the store, I'm sure I would have been asked to leave the mall and or arrested.
Why do you believe that?
What you mean why do I believe that? Because...
Why do you believe that?
Okay. I really don't want to play this game again today. You know, this happened to me Saturday. I'm very emotional about it. Okay, I'm asking you, I want to file a complaint against your 2 officers. You said I can do that with you, right? Because I see this is getting nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. Adrian?
Yeah, you know what, a lot of people thought it was funny when they watched that Karen act up, roll on the floor, scream, and accuse the black woman of assaulting her. And I didn't find it to be funny one bit because I've lived it. When you are subject to an attack from someone who is in a privileged position, whether by race and by gender, and you are presumed to be the aggressor by virtue of the color of your skin, you're thought to be one who is the strong black woman trope, the couldn't possibly be a victim and can't be victimized. And you just have to sit there and wonder, who can I call? I have no one but myself. And you saw so many people in that situation where they actually tried to regulate the black woman and what she was doing and saying she needed to go away or to leave her alone. And she wasn't doing anything but minding her own business, yet she was subject to attack and no one was protecting her. Not anyone, not even the police. The police were then playing these games. And this is the stuff that I go through as a black woman and that so many other black women in this world go through. The thought that we can't be victims, the thought that we're not weak or that we're not suffering or that we're not afraid. And yeah, that black woman was kind of laughing and smirking because that's what we do to deal with essentially our plight. Because what am I gonna do, cry when you'll just see that as what? Not me as a victim or not me scared or vulnerable in any way. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a disgusting injustice and it's not okay.
You got to look at all of the systems that failed this African-American female victim. And you make a very compelling point that there's an assumption that's made about black women that's not made about white females. And the assumption about black women is that they are going to be more aggressive or they're stronger or they can take it. It's just a ridiculous notion to start with. But here are the systems that failed her. The first system was Victoria's Secret. And I know she's not blaming Victoria's Secret yet. She probably will later. But they should have been much more aggressive, in my opinion, about removing somebody that disorderly in their store and violating the basic freedom of a patron. That's number one. Number two, the system of the mall security failed her. And number three, the actual law enforcement who responded, they failed this woman. Big ups to her for going through the extra process, making the time sacrifice, filing the complaint, bringing light to it, because that's truly how you start transforming some of these agencies who are not willing to look at their own stuff. And thank you for that insight, Adrian. Shifting gears to a situation in Michigan. Michigan man has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. What did he do? Well, one, he's racist. Two, his racism caused him to smash a bike lock into the face of a black teenager while shouting, "Black lives don't matter." He got 5 years. His name is Lee Muat, was sentenced after pleading guilty to charges stemming from last year when he confronted a group of black teenagers in Sterling State Park in Monroe, Michigan, and struck 18-year-old Devin Freeland Jr. in the head with a bike lock and attempted to strike the teen a second time. That probably would have killed him. Muad is also told Freeland Black lives don't matter during this racist attack. Freeland was left with lacerations on his face and mouth, a fractured jaw, and lost several teeth. It took $15,000 worth of dental work to fix the damage done to Freeland Jr. Fortunately, a local dentist stepped up to the plate, was able to provide care at no charge after hearing about the incident. Let's put up a picture of this young survivor of a racist attack. He's happy. Now, can you imagine you're with your friends one day and all of a sudden a racist white man smashes a bike lock into your face, damaging your mouth, damaging your jaw, damaging your face, and you now have to have multiple surgeries to get it fixed? Well, this young man to me is a hero. According to the narrative, At about 7:45 p.m. on June 6, 2020, Freelon was in the park when he heard someone yell from the beach parking lot the N-word. Don't belong on this beach. Witnesses said Muat was upset that Freelon and his friends were playing music on the beach and started making racial comments about the group. Freelon was retrieving a speaker from the car at the time. Adrian, we're running out of time, but I wanted to get your thoughts about the sentence here. He got 5 years. Is that enough for this unprovoked racial violence against this teenager?
I think it's actually a pretty strong start. 5 years. Of course, that'll depend how many this individual actually serves for this assault and this attack. I think it's also important to remember, because we need to look beyond just the physical violence. As we saw in that Karen situation, the black woman had to run away from the white woman. She was running around the store, but hadn't she may have been struck or hurt, but that doesn't mean she hasn't suffered psychological damage, emotional damage. And so the same thing with this young man, Freelon. He has a lot of emotional injuries that'll be tied to his experience. I doubt he goes to beaches. I'm sure he looks around his shoulder, and I'm sure he doesn't sleep at night. So as much as we want to just look to the exterior, we need to realize that when people are victims and they are suffering trauma, that it's so much more than what's on the outside, that Karen rolling around on the ground and screaming, that's often what we're feeling inside, except for it's genuine and true.
Very well said. Adrian, we appreciate you always breaking it down on Indisputable. The value of your knowledge, I'm so thankful for. How can people follow you on social media and check you out?
All right, you can check me out on Twitter at Adrian Law and on Instagram at Adrian Lawrence.
Thank you so much. We got more. Stick and stay.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it.
We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of it, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Fox. I told you we were coming.
When you talk about it, when it becomes a problem, our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock. And we're gonna run you out of town. And we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
the fact that I like.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments and we'll get into our next segment. Good to have everybody chiming in. We got TYT member, cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, saying, am I the only one not understanding how racial slurs are part of the Spanish as a second language curriculum? I was thinking she was going to talk about the etymology of the word Negro or something, but that was straight out of left field. Right, it didn't even almost kind of in some small way connect to the curriculum. She just probably wanted to say the N-word in public. You'll be surprised how many people want to do that. Tanya Montana says, those in power are so hypocritical. It is okay to spew stupid neo-Nazi junk in the classroom, but want to ban the truth about how racist US history, in the classroom. Well, that is absolutely wrong. I agree with you. Super chat. Man of Tomorrow says, easy, and this is about the Karen. Easy, ask the police to look at the video. They do it for theft, secure both people outside the mall in separate police cars. Check the tape, someone is going to jail. How hard is that? Nicole Smith, really? If the tables were turned, the black woman would have been arrested. But this isn't even going to be removed. What? R. King 1 Garcia. This is why we need social workers and psychologists responding to people in crisis. Tiger says, hey, Dr. Richie, I gave you some faulty info about that knife wielding Karen. She is in Fort Wayne, not Fort Worth. She called the kids slurs too. I checked that out. Okay. Thank you so much. Central Committee just rated us. Thanks, Mike. Also, Emperor Pompayi. Maybe I said that almost correct. But thank you for subscribing for 6 months. Thank you so much for that. All right, and we got a lot more. I can't get to all of them, but I thank every single one of you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna talk about defund the police. I have a great guest, Mr. Terrence Woodbury, analyst at Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies, a data man, a man after my own heart. Terrence, how are you, sir? All right, let's get y'all from mute.
It's so good to be here, Dr. Richie. Correction, I am a partner at Hitch Strategies now. Hitch Strategies is where we are conducting polling and where we have some very fascinating new polling about defund the police and attitudes towards police and race.
Well, awesome. Congratulations on the new assignment, brother. So let's get into the data, because naturally you hear a lot of conservatives, and I've debated them right here on the program. They are anti-defund the police because they think it means to eliminate policing altogether. You know the stats, roughly 96% of Americans believe police reform needs to happen. 58% believe it needs to be dramatic. Even 51% of Republicans believe that police reform needs to take place in the United States of America. So let's talk about what movement you're seeing in the movement for defund the police.
That's right, Dr. Richie. According to our latest data from Black Track, for the first time, we see a majority of black voters, 53% of black voters saying that they agree that the police should be defunded. 67% say that they agree that we should redirect funds from police to invest in social services and community building. This reflects a real trend, not just amongst black voters, but amongst Democratic voters who have become more ubiquitous in their attitudes about race, attitudes about policing, and their demands for police reform.
Let's go to what defund the police actually means. There was an intentional misrepresentation of defund the police, primarily on those on the right. but it did influence those that were in the middle to think defund the police meant something that it did not mean. Defund the police means exactly what you just said. It means to reimagine and reprioritize the policing budget to address the underlying issues of criminality. That helps the police. When you build communities, you help the police. When you connect common sense policies to have a better neighborhood, that helps the police. So tell me, where do you think people lost the messaging dynamic of defund the police?
You know, frankly, Dr. Richey, this is a challenge and an opportunity for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. You know, this is a rhetorical trap. This idea of do you agree or oppose defund? It's a rhetorical trap. And instead of Democrats declaring blanket opposition for defund, they have an opportunity to start declaring their support for policies that are in fact popular on both sides, that make communities safer. And most important, Dr. Richey, and this is where I've been really concerned, policies that will prevent Democrats from oppositioning the most loyal activists in this party. You know, when Republicans look at their most loyal activists, pro-life activists, pro-gun activists, those are not the fringes of the Republican Party. They are the lifeblood of the Republican Party. And Democrats have an opportunity here to enlist these activists, the activists that we saw during the summer of unrest last year following George Floyd's death, where we saw the complexion of those protests change. Yeah. We saw the majority of those protesters were white. And we saw this thing, Dr. Richey, that we started to classify last summer. We saw the movement evolve from a movement of Black people versus the police to a movement of young people versus racism. And that is where we see a lot of this energy happening. And that poses an opportunity for progressive candidates up and down the ballot to really begin championing these issues, to stop running from defund, putting our head in the sand and pretending like it's not there. Republicans are going to make this a key issue, but the progressive candidates are on the right side of that issue, and now they have an opportunity to begin messaging that.
They're on the right side of the issue, and I actually agree with the messaging. And I've defended the messaging, defund the police, since it started, because number one, it got us talking about it. If we would have still been calling it police reform, nobody would have been talking about that. Not in the circles that we talk about it now, and it would not have had the same spotlight as it does today. Defund the police got you to stop, pause, think, and talk. That's what it did. It achieved its purpose. But I do believe that many Democrats, especially corporate Democrats, they ran away from it. They ran away from it because they allow conservatives to do what they do very well, which is to message something antithetical to its actual meaning. They did it with Obamacare. Well, damn it, I was happy that Obama cared. I don't understand why that is an issue, but we can't run away from the branding of it when the branding is the reason why people are talking about it in a different light.
That's it. That's exactly right, Dr. Richey. And you know, it really does. It's presenting this false choice, this idea that either we want public safety or we want police reform. You know, when we talk to Black voters in focus groups, I talked to a young Black man in a focus group in Florida just a week ago, who said, "We want you to stop. We want you to stop us from getting killed, and we want you to stop killing us." That's Why is that so hard? This forced choice, that it is either safety from crime or safety from police, is one that Black voters are rejecting, and one that Democratic voters more broadly are beginning to see right through and reject.
And the tactic is called framing the debate. They tell you you can either believe this or believe that. You can either do this or do that. It's framing the debate, and I'm glad that people like you, brother, are telling the masses, don't fall for the okie doke. How can folks follow you, man, and follow your work?
Please find our latest Black Track here at hitstrat.com. We are Hit Strategies. Our website is hitstrat.com. You can go there and see all the latest data from Black Track here and from the last year of Black Tracks that we've been collecting.
You're doing great work, brother. I appreciate you, man. You always have an opportunity here on Indisputable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We got more on the other side. The bullpen is next.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee?
Yes, new twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 15 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
I want you to take on the spirit of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman, who said these words: if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. At this particular moment in time, sisters and brothers, we need somebody that is not going to flinch, somebody that's not going to equivocate when it comes to the workaday people of this nation.
You're speaking a language that voters understand, which is you're worth it. I think the key to everything is Nina Turner.
TYT has an exclusive announcement, Move On, which has chosen to endorse Nina Turner for Ohio's 11th congressional district.
We have to tell them right here in the heart. Right. Why we're running. Yes. And what we're gonna do in those spaces and places to make their lives a better place.
I think Nina can change the entire dynamic of American politics.
Because with these hands, we will rise.
Nina Turner steps into the direct fire sometimes in the name of the people.
And is that we have become numb to some of the very real challenges in this country.
Here comes Nina Turner! Here comes Nina Turner! Hope's back!
If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If you want a better country, a better world for yourselves and future generations, you must. And if you know that we are in this fight together, you must.
What's happening? Welcome back. Let me read some of these viewer comments. We got a lot of them. I can't get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as I can. Super chat, YouTube. Rudy Giuliani freestyle video says, never not smashing like that for Dr. Richie. Okay. Twitch, Frost the Banana says, enforce gun regulation, it'll take guns from domestic abusers, which a high number of cops are. Interesting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, I have president of Every Black Life Matters, Kevin McGarry. Kevin, good day.
Dr. Richie, thank you for having me, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show. All right, let's get into it. You are the founder of Every Black Life Matters, yes, president of that organization. Mm-hmm. And I was able to research some of your tweets and some of the things you retweeted, just to get an understanding of what you believe and do not believe. So let me ask you this, because I do not want to presume what you believe on this show. Do you believe critical race theory teaches black children to hate white children?
I think critical race theory in general is racist. I mean, whenever you teach that one race is to be demonized, criticized, and to be ostracized, irrespective of race, that's racism. And so when you do that, it's racist. And I think we should have learned some valuable lessons when we're told to focus in on content of character and not skin color.
Yeah, I think you should have learned what critical race theory actually is. What you just described is not critical race theory. So let me ask you first, maybe I should have started with that question. What is critical race theory?
Well, so it's an academic, point of view that's come out of the Frankfurt School, which started in the early 1900s, that was out of the Columbia University. It was critical theory that evolved into critical legal theory that then Derek Bell took and made critical race theory, and basically focused in on trying to have academics look at race as a sort of an area where to focus in on trying to, for lack of a better term, this is my term, level the playing field, if you will, and sort of level up with others. It's one of those amorphic terms, really, quite honestly. And so it's one of these things that it doesn't have a real good, in my opinion, definition, because
that's not true. That's not true. It's not morphic. It's only morphic.
You're an intellectual. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah. So critical race theory is an advanced theoretical framework that really poses a question based on analysis. And the analysis de-emphasizes racist people. So while you may say critical race theory teaches black kids to hate white people, well, critical race theory does the exact opposite of that. It literally de-emphasizes individual racist people. And it looks at policies, institutions, and frameworks that were created in a racial bias to remedy the racial bias. Let me give you an example. Okay. The Declaration of Independence calls Native Americans savages. That's not acceptable in our terminology or phraseology about Native Americans today, but that was acceptable at one time in the formation of this country. The Constitution said that you and me, brother, are 3/5 of a person. You and me.
Do you really understand
that is, okay. Hold on, sir, I understand it quite well. I'm happy to go back and forth with you about the Constitution on this show. The Constitution clearly said you and I are 3/5 of a person. Let's go to the 1930s.
But okay, go ahead.
Say that again?
I don't think you understand the 3/5 compromise, but okay, go ahead.
I understand the 3/5 compromise quite well, but I also understand that I'm more than 3/5 of a man. I'm a whole man. I hope you understand that too.
Oh, I do understand that.
Okay, all right, good. So let's go to the 1930s. In the 1930s, you literally had a government program that would draw district lines around black communities so that banks, private institutions could legally say we're not going to lend money to this particular geographical land site, but the government drew the lands based on race. That was in the 1930s. All of these are elements that critical race theory says we should analyze from an institution and systematic approach rather than an individual bias approach. That's all critical race theory teaches. And for you to suggest that critical race theory is somehow adversarial to the learning of our children. Brother, critical race theory is an advanced theoretical framework. It's not even taught in K through 12 education. So where do you guys get this stuff from?
Come on, Dr. Richie. You're saying that it helps de-emphasize racism or racist.
Individual racist people, correct.
Well, which means then that fundamentally it focuses in on telling whites basically that you're racist. Does it?
No. It de-emphasizes, brother. You have to call a thing, brother.
Okay, so are you saying that all whites are racist? Just answer that for me.
Hell no. I got white people that work with me on this show. I have white friends. What are you talking about? All whites are racist. Who believes that, brother?
I think that most of your CRT adherents and proponents would believe that.
Let me tell you where you're wrong on that.
Most of your CRT adherents, or at least Kendi and D'Angelo, certainly are.
Okay. Can I tell you where you're wrong? Okay. So I've been teaching critical race theory at the university level for 5 years.
Okay.
The person who taught me is a guy who's been teaching critical race theory for damn near 20.
Okay.
He's not racist. Hold on, brother. Let me provide Dr. Chika Akua. He's not racist. There is not one professor who teaches critical race theory who has ever exhibited racism against white people. Not one that I'm aware of. Not one says that all white people are racist. So where are you getting your stuff from?
So here's what's interesting. You have a lot of people that are adherents or proponents of critical race theory that basically do attempt. Now maybe they have sort of monopolized or manipulated the movement. Okay. But they position themselves as champions of CRT, okay? And Ibram X. Kendi, D'Angelo, Derek Bell, and others have basically positioned themselves as people who understand the theory, okay? These are people who have actually asserted one way or another that prejudice is perfectly okay, it's acceptable. It's an acceptable rationale to level the playing field by actually ostracizing, castigating, demonizing whiteness, canceling whiteness because of what happened with their ancestors in the 1800s. And here's what's interesting, Dr.
And let me respond to that when you can, because you're misguided.
Here, can I just make a point? I know this is your show and you had great, entree. Can I just make a point? And I'd love to get your input on this.
Absolutely.
But you were so eloquent, you were so intellectual in your prose when you did your introduction here, and you went all the way back in history. But one of the things that's interesting about CRT is all of you guys. You mentioned about history and you mentioned about the early 1900s in this. When you talk about history, though, you never talk about what happened in the 1800s and who were really the proponents of slavery. You never really speak about who elongated slavery. You never really speak about.
Well, brother, go ahead and talk about it. You have the opportunity right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So who were those people? Who were those people that started and elongated and propagated slavery all those many years? Who were those?
Yeah, people who are. I will explain. I will explain, brother. People who were adversarial to the growth of my people. That's who they were. What's your next point?
Who was it? There was a particular faction, though, Dr. Richie.
Okay, brother. Tell me all of the elements involved. Go ahead, please.
Well, there were two elements. There was a pro-slavery element, and there was a abolitionist element. So who was the pro-slavery element? How come it's never mentioned?
Brother, what in the hell does that have to do with what we're talking about? Make your point, brother.
My point is all of the intellectuals, yourself included, never ever mention the party, the leftist progressive.
Oh, that's a damn lie. Democrats were racist as hell. Next.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, you got the wrong show for that, brother. Obviously, hold on, wait a minute.
Competent to be able to mention.
Obviously, you haven't done research on me, brother. Those Democrats and Dixiecrats, and people that consider themselves to be on the left were racist as hell, and in many ways just as racist as the conservatives they were demonized back then. They get no light with me. There was a time in Georgia, brother, listen to me. In Georgia, all of the lynching legislation was passed by white Democrats. There was a time. Now those Democrats were Dixiecrats and became Republicans later. And I can't fail to mention that 100%. Hold on, brother. I can't fail to mention that 100% of members of the KKK today are Republicans, Trump supporters, conservatives. Oh, you really think they're members of the KKK today who are supporting Kamala Harris, Joe Biden? Come on, man. If we're gonna be real, be all the way real.
When you consider anti-Semitism of the KKK, you really think that those are Republicans, bro?
Well, hold on, wait. The KKK endorsed Donald Trump. The Grand Master endorsed Donald Trump. What are you talking about?
Dr. Richie, I actually think that the KKK and white separatists actually transitioned when they realized that there was a pro-Jewish vote.
Oh my God.
They actually transitioned their vote.
Are you saying that the KKK, who has endorsed Donald Trump twice, leaders, say that again?
Anti-Semitic, are they not?
Okay, brother, listen to my question. Listen to my question, brother. You have failed to answer my first question.
Okay,
let's keep some sensibility here. Are you saying that the KKK, the Ku Klux Klans, are no longer in support of Donald Trump and the white supremacists connected to the Trump movement? Is that what you're telling us on this show? They have changed their minds.
Quite honestly, I haven't followed the KKK, so I don't know, but I do know for a fact that they're anti-Jewish and anti-Semitic. I do know.
Of course they are.
Huh?
Of course they are.
And I do know that the Trump administration and a lot of the Republicans, all of the Republicans are pro-Jew. So with that, I do know that a lot of the KKK rejected the Trump administration, and that is a fact. So I don't know.
Hey man, their leadership endorsed your guy. They endorsed Donald. Well, the leadership of the KKK endorsed your guy. That's a fact. We don't have to argue an opinion over that. That is simply a fact.
I don't know about that.
All right, well, do your research when you get a moment. So let's go back to critical race theory.
All right.
Here's what I think has happened, brother. And I want you to think about this in the context of history.
Okay.
Critical race theory has been around bona fide since the 1970s. It's been discussed really since 1958. It became formalized in the 1970s.
Okay.
So in the 1970s, you had this academic theoretical framework. And this academic theoretical framework did one specific thing. It posed a question, and a legitimate question. It said, wait a minute, even if you get rid of all of the biased white people in America, for example, if everyone woke up tomorrow, brother, and you had only 1% of racist white people in America, you would still have inequity. You would still have unequal outcomes because partly due to the laws and how the institutions continue to operate, the inherent bias within the Constitution, laws that flow statutorily from the Constitution, language in the Declaration of Independence, institutional norms, the whole nine. And so critical race theory said, we now should stop asking the question about how do individual racist people hurt us, and let's ask the question, how have the institutions they created hurt us? What's wrong with that question?
It's not about the question. It's about the tactics. It's about the strategy. It's about the brainwashing. It's about the it's about the overall context.
Where is that happening? Where's brainwashing happening?
Especially in academia and especially in K through 12. Now remember,
where's that happening?
Well, hey, read. I mean, Joe Biden.
No, you tell me. You're on the show. Where is the brainwashing happening?
Let me tell you, Dr. Richie. Joe Biden said we should definitely put critical race theory on the table for K through 12 education.
That's brainwashing.
Multiple times, and he
says it can be a tool. Wait a minute. So because the president of the United States says it is a tool that educators should be able to access, you're saying that the president of the United States is engaged in brainwashing because he says this is a tool that they can in fact access if they choose to teach it.
And the NEA doubled down last week and says we will begin.
Defend.
Huh?
Defend. Go to court.
In the
right.
National Education Association said
that's right.
We will begin to incorporate critical race theory, components of critical race theory within the curriculum for our public school system. That's
now,
what they say.
First of all, I want you to go back and I want you to read that article. What the agency has done is they have decided to defend any school teacher who teaches what they call accurate history. They have not even mentioned critical race theory because the president of the association will tell you very clearly that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 education. That comes from the president of the agency. So when you conflate the president of the agency saying that they are now teaching critical race theory is adversarial to what she has said on the record. Here's another thing they've said. Here's another point, and I want you to respond. I'll give you time to respond. They have said that critical race theory has never been an issue. Brother, just think about it. And it makes sense. Go ahead, say it again.
You're hilarious, man.
Why am I hilarious? I'm telling you truth, brother. I'm telling you truth.
It doesn't even have to be an issue. If it's never even taught and it's not an issue, then why do we have to defend it at all?
You just made my damn point. Now, let me break down what's happening now. You just made my point for me. You don't even know it.
That's
Sir,
right.
All of the bills, every state legislature, Republican-led, that passed an anti-critical race theory law. Guess what they did not put in the law? Guess what wording is not in the statute? Critical race theory. So every state government that passed an anti-CRT law for K through 12 education did not put the terminology CRT or critical race theory inside of the statute. You know why? Because it's not taught in K through 12 education. So they can't say stop teaching something that wasn't taught in the first place. Brother, you need to do your research.
Okay, so just because they don't teach what is an academically formed thesis about at a college level CRT, it doesn't mean that you don't take the spirit of what is potentially,
okay, well stop calling it critical race theory then.
Ideology and put it in a K through 12 frame so it could be absorbed at a child level. So that we're talking about.
Were you taught critical race theory in K through 12 education?
Excuse me?
Were you taught critical race theory in K through 12 education?
No, I wasn't, but I came up in the generations ago, man.
Okay, you got children?
Yeah.
They taught critical race theory in K through 12.
They came up in generations early, man.
Well, I got children that are in school right now.
Yeah.
They're not taught K through 12, in K through 12, they're not taught critical race theory. You know what? Nobody in K through 12 education is taught critical race theory. As I said before.
That's not true. The Washington School District, they are being taught that, and those kids are radicalized. We've actually had some recent studies out of the Portland and Washington State school districts that those kids are actually they're going out with Antifa in the evenings now because they're self-loathing. They're rejecting academic studies. They're going out and they're going out and on the streets with Antifa in the evenings. I mean, come on.
This is just okay. So we've established that's just silly as hell what you just said.
I mean,
we've established that critical race theory is actually not taught in K through 12 education, and so your beef is with the spirit of critical race theory. So let's be very clear.
Okay.
If it's not critical race theory being taught. Be man enough and woman enough, whoever you are, to say, we're not saying stop the teaching of critical race theory. We're saying, let's stop teaching the true racial history of America. Critical race theory is the false pretext used to create the context in order to stop the teaching of true racism in the United States and how institutions have contributed to the racism in the United States. That is what they want you to stop teaching in K through 12 education.
No, I don't think that's what the issue is. The issue is we don't want our children to be used as tools
What
to
year?
further a racist agenda.
Okay.
We don't want our kids to be brainwashed.
I'm almost out of time, brother. What year did school teachers start teaching critical race theory in K through 12? What year?
What year do they start?
What year did school teachers in K through 12 education start teaching critical race theory? What year did that happen?
Apparently, I think that the schools in the West Coast were the earliest years, and I think it started probably 3 to 5 years ago.
So that's incorrect. So let me give you where it actually started. The movement
they don't do it at all. You told me
the movement, right? And I'm about to make that point again. The movement against critical race theory came after Donald Trump made it a big evil and decided to create an executive order to eliminate the teaching of critical race theory inside of federal training programs meant to train federal workers and contractors on diversity in the workplace. Once Donald Trump said critical race theory was a great American evil, that is when all of you guys jumped on the bandwagon, even though the damn thing been around since 1958, it was formalized in 1970. It did not become a thing until Donald Trump said it was a thing.
Okay, so what year did it start? So it started.
It never started, brother. That's my point. School teachers don't teach it, damn it. They don't teach critical race theory in K through 12 education.
They started it in Portland and Washington.
Okay. All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being on the program. It was fun. All right, you have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of this planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.